The moment trial number 2 kicks off, the arena instantly transforms into an absolute bloodbath. While everyone else is completely losing their minds, our main character Yunsol is just chilling against the wall. He's totally unfazed, looking like he is just observing a routine autopsy. But here is the crazy part. For the final showdown, the whole crowd thinks the top dog Myung Wukong is about to dice Yunsol into a million pieces. Wukong unleashes an absolute hurricane of blades, but our boy just effortlessly weaves through it. Why? Because he has completely downloaded Wukong's entire moveset. Just by analyzing the dead bodies this dude left in his wake. Playing mind games, Yunsol deliberately talks trash, baiting the heavy hitter into going all in for a massive kill shot, straight for the brain and the chest. In that split-second window, Yunsol slips under the blade and violently jams his dagger right into a fatal blind spot in the neck, exactly how his grandpa taught him. And speaking of the old man, Yunsol was actually named by his grandpa after being found freezing to death in a snowy wasteland. The old man raised him and passed down the family business of preparing the dead, since he was a master mortician himself. Fast forward to one tragic night, Yunsol thought they were just hanging out, completely unaware it would be their final goodbye. He stumbled upon a horrific scene, finding his grandpa dumped on the ground, missing both eyes and amputated at the shoulders. Just minutes prior, the old man had crossed paths with a shadowy figure who exposed his hidden past, calling him the demonic blade, Bujang Yang. The killer accused him of going rogue and told him to rot in the underworld. Bleeding out, the old man pulls Yunsol close and begs him with his dying breath to drop any thoughts of payback and just live peacefully. But come on, we all know the plot armor does not work like that. Yunsol is absolutely not letting this slide. Going into full CSI mode on his grandpa's corpse, he confirms the arms were cleanly severed. But the crazy detail, the killer used a top-down slicing technique, which is ridiculously rare in this universe. To make things even wilder, the attack dynamically shifted midair to gouge out the eyes. Yunsol instantly connects the dots. This brutal combat style screams demonic path, specifically pointing to the infamous Chonju Yuwa fighting form. Flipping the body over, he spots the real kicker on his back. Exactly 93 puncture wounds from concealed projectiles. To rain down steel like a meteor shower, the killer had to be packing some insane mechanical gear, capable of rapid-firing hundreds of needles. On top of that, the corpse's fingernails and the bottom of the tongue are completely black. That specific discoloration is a dead giveaway of a top-tier toxin designed to literally melt flesh and curdle blood from the inside out. Crunching the data, Yunsol realizes the suspect pool is incredibly small. Right then and there, he vows to hunt this monster down, whatever the cost. Zero hesitation, our guy goes completely locked in on his revenge arc. Cut to him staring down an official registration contract. As he is processing the paperwork, some arrogant instructor starts barking at him to hurry up and stamp the document. But Yunsol literally stuns the room by biting into his own thumb and stamping the paper with raw blood. Since the tragedy, this absolute menace has sacrificed his entire existence to the art of payback, and he has officially burned all his bridges. That blood oath is exactly why he is throwing himself into this lethal tournament, treating it as step 1 in his master plan. Let's pause for some quick lore. This martial arts world is split between the rule followers and the outcasts, locked in a massive cold war. The good guys run by the MURIM Alliance are all about high morals and strict justice. Meanwhile, the dark side revolves around the Demon Palace, a savage empire where absolute power is the only law that matters. They have maintained a tense stalemate for generations, but the Righteous Alliance recently decided to flex their muscles and claim total dominance. To pull this off, they forged an elite squad known as the 18 Martial Masters, basically their ultimate superheroes for justice. Not wanting to get wiped off the map, the Demon Palace retaliated by massively buffing their own ranks. Their countermeasure was simple: birth the 10 Demon Masters. The underground bosses launched a massive draft to find 10 insanely gifted rookies to inherit the most overpowered forbidden techniques in existence. And the wildest part, they do not give a single care about your background or what crimes you committed before signing your life away. Thanks to this no-strings-attached loophole, hordes of ambitious fighters swarmed the Demon Palace, including our boy Yunsol, standing shoulder to shoulder in a sea of bloodthirsty rivals. He can physically feel the killer intent suffocating the room. Scanning the crowd, his instincts tell him that somewhere in this mob sits a direct link to his grandfather's murderer. Knowing the assassin is a literal god-tier fighter, Yunsol accepts that he needs to hit maximum level before he even tries to throw hands. That is exactly why he is obsessed with claiming a spot as a demon master. He needs that ungodly power buff if he wants to tear his enemy apart. Suddenly, a massive, terrifyingly shredded dude steps up to the podium to address the fresh meat. He drops his name, head instructor, Hyukreon Young. The whole crowd collectively gasps when they realize they are standing in front of a living legend. Famous for leaving a trail of absolute destruction, Hyukreon barked out that they are only here to harvest the top 0.1% of prodigies across the entire underworld. Survive the brutal gauntlet he is about to lay down, and you might just earn the right to audition for the 10 Demon Masters. Without missing a beat, he announces the very first challenge, warning the recruits that palace veterans are about to violently test their physical limits, instantly sending a wave of dread through the crowd. The crowd immediately starts groaning, totally underwhelmed by what they thought was going to be an intense, high-stakes showdown. But the martial arts masters completely ignore the whining strictly, sizing up everyone's physical stats to separate the weak from the strong. Meanwhile, the absolute units in the room are practically cheering, thrilled to score a free pass straight into the second round. Instructor Jin Gak steps right up to Yun-seo, running a strict eye over his frame. One quick touch is all it takes for the master to mentally write Yun-seo off as a total goner, seriously questioning why this scrawny kid even showed up. That is, until a spine-chilling wave of pure menace radiates right off the boy's skin. Even so, Jin Gak knows it would be a massive mistake to let someone with that kind of dark energy advance, shutting his progression down on the spot. Yun-seo doesn't even flinch, already fully aware his frail build meant an instant rejection. After all, hauling lifeless bodies around his whole life hardly builds a warrior's physique, but his gut tells him this evaluation is far from over. A few seconds later, the proctor officially calls the end of Phase 1. Naturally, one of the rejected guys completely loses his cool, throwing a massive tantrum over how rigged the system feels. He starts yelling about why they even bothered hosting a public tryout if being built like a tank was the only passing grade. Hyuk shuts the kid down instantly, coldly explaining that solid bone structure and muscle mass are the absolute foundations of any martial art. He brutally roasts the complainer for failing their bare minimum standard, reminding him that an open door doesn't guarantee a seat at the table. The furious guy keeps running his mouth aggressively, demanding his promised chance to prove his worth. That is exactly when Hyuk flashes, a dark grin assuring the loudmouth that Phase 2 is approaching fast. He casually mentions, this next test is specifically designed for the physically weak, to showcase their hidden potential. Without missing a beat, the master officially triggers the second round. The rules: a brutal free-for-all, where they must fight to survive until only a single player remains, leaving the entire room completely shell-shocked. But that hyped-up loudmouth from earlier, he instantly locks in, entirely too eager to start taking down his competition. His crazy eyes zero straight onto his prey, snatching a massive spear and launching it through the air. Fueled by pure adrenaline and dark intent, the weapon rips through the wind, hurtling directly at our boy Yun-seo. Plot twist: Yun-seo was never the target. The blade brutally skewers the guy in red, standing right next to him, taking out the attacker's bitter rival instead. The victim lets out a horrifying shriek, collapsing to the floor in agony before taking his final breath. Crimson droplets splatter directly across Yun-seo's cheek, while he calmly stares down at the fallen competitor at his feet. Yun-seo is low-key stunned, watching a guy get instantly taken off the board by a flying polearm from out of nowhere. Yet with barely a second glance, our guy is already flawlessly diagnosing the exact angle of the fatal strike. He notes how the blade bypassed the ribs to pierce the center perfectly, proving that Wancheng actually has insane precision. Meanwhile, Wancheng is over there flexing and hyping himself up for scoring the first elimination. Watching from the sidelines, Hyuk silently notes the kid's fast reflexes but totally writes off his absolute lack of tactical brains. The master sighs in heavy disappointment, convinced this entire batch is nothing but clueless NPCs. Jin Gak nods along, knowing that trying to show off in a battle royale just paints a giant bullseye right on your own forehead. Still, scoring that first hit was the perfect spark to wake up the rest of these kids to their grim reality. Seconds later, absolute bedlam breaks loose, transforming the once quiet testing ground into a total combat zone. While the sheltered rookies totally freak out over the chaos, the two masters spot a single competitor radiating pure ice. Leaning casually against the far wall, this mysterious dude couldn't care less about the brutal brawls erupting right in his face. Then, their eyes shift to Yun-seo, who is equally unbothered, forcing the instructors to admit, maybe there is some main character energy hidden in this mess. Yun-seo watches the madness with zero panic, quietly judging these fools for letting pure terror control their moves. The prompt was simple: outlast the clock. Securing your own survival is the main quest, not racking up unnecessary eliminations. He quickly calculates that keeping a totally frozen heart and a tactical mindset is his ultimate cheat code to making it out of there. Crouching low to the floor, he starts examining the fallen victims to reverse engineer their exact combat injuries. Right in the middle of his tactical investigation, a dude packing a long-range weapon spots our MC totally avoiding the melee. As Yun-seo stays hyper-focused on scanning the targets to study the enemy's attack patterns, this lurking sniper gets violently triggered by his sideline chill. The aggressor chucks his weapon straight at him, narrowly shaving past Yun-seo's head to completely obliterate the mysterious wooden box strapped to his back. The smirking attacker instantly starts mocking Yun-seo, loudly questioning why a supposedly peaceful monk was dragging around such useless baggage in a war zone. That ruined box held his grandpa's birthday presents, and trashing it just flipped his switch from calm to absolute menace. He whips out a tiny dagger, making the attacker laugh, totally convinced. Yun-Sol doesn't have the sauce to survive. The guy ruthlessly mocks the bite-sized blade, but while he is busy running his mouth, that edgy swordsman from before materializes right at his back and effortlessly slices him in half. The edgy guy smirks, flexing hard as he tells Yun-Sol to save his breath on the thank yous, claiming the kid was just convenient bait to land a free kill. Through all this yapping, Yun-Sol stays completely locked in on his own business, treating the guy like an absolute ghost. The swordsman scans Yun-Sol, sensing zero martial arts energy, instantly marking him as free XP. While staring down his so-called prey, an assassin lunges at his blind spot, but the swordsman instantly dissects the sneaker, reacting like he has eyes planted in the back of his skull. Up in the VIP seats, Hyuk grills Jin-gok about this ruthless fighter wielding a ridiculously rare weapon, famously dubbed the Extermination Blade. He is dying to know how some random is carrying the legendary gear of the Black Soul, historically feared as the ultimate rogue warrior. Jin-gok drops the lore, revealing the guy is named Nung Wukong, and rumors claim he stumbled upon the master's hidden skillbook alongside the mythical weapon. Wukong basically speedran the forbidden training, claiming the title of the Black Soul's one and only successor. Jin-gok admits Wukong's physical stats are mid, but he is still the undisputed heavy favorite to clear this deathmatch, since everyone else looks like total fodder compared to him. Even so, Jin-gok hints that the entire vibe could flip if some crazy wildcard enters the chat. Once the bloodbath finally pauses, only Wukong and Yun-Sol are left breathing in the arena. Wukong is genuinely shook that this random kid survived the slaughter. Dripping with arrogance, he promises Yun-Sol that bagging his head guarantees him a spot among the 10 demon masters, making his fingers itch to start slicing. Despite facing the final boss of this hellscape, Yun-Sol does not even flinch, keeping his face frozen in pure apathy. The secret: he has already decoded the elite killer's fatal flaw. Gripping his tiny dagger, Yun-Sol radiates absolute certainty that he is about to cook this guy. Treating it like a game, Wukong unleashes a hurricane of blinding slashes, aiming to toy with his prey. In a massive plot twist, Yun-Sol weaves through the metal storm, dodging every lethal strike, with zero major damage. The spectators watch the madness unfold from the balconies, and while it looks like Yun-Sol is getting brutally ragdolled, they notice him micro-shifting his angles at the last millisecond to deflect fatal hits. It violently hits Jin-gok that Yun-Sol completely downloaded Wukong's entire moveset just by analyzing the mangled bodies scattered around them. Jin-gok is absolutely mind-blown by the insane battle IQ that our boy is casually flexing. Deciding to turn up the heat, Yun-Sol heavily trash-talks the swordsman, calling his legendary techniques absolute garbage, since all those flashy moves only left shallow scratches. Jin-gok instantly realizes the kid is aggressively baiting his opponent, but sweats over whether Yun-Sol can actually pull off the god-tier counter needed to end this deathmatch. The psychological warfare hits perfectly, snapping Wukong's ego in half as he charges forward in a blind, murderous rage. With the boss rushing him down, Yun-Sol knows he gets exactly one frame to execute his master plan. Built completely off the autopsies he did mid-fight, he clocked that Wukong's ultimate combo heavily auto-targets the vitals, aggressively hunting the heart and skull. Knowing the exact script, our boy is already 10 steps ahead. The second that legendary blade nears his face, Yun-Sol violently ducks, Matrix dodging the death blow, and blowing Wukong's defense wide open. Flashback to his grandpa casually dropping lore about a hidden exploit in the human neck that breaks basically any martial artist. Even a toddler could one-shot a grandmaster by piercing that exact pressure point with perfect accuracy and just enough force to break through the skin. That singular glitch in the human body is exactly what Yun-Sol is hunting for, and Wukong blindly hands it to him on a silver platter for the dagger to effortlessly slide through. Paralyzed by shock, the swordsman feels his throat spiked onto Yun-Sol's tiny blade, watching a geyser of crimson explode into the air. The so-called legendary successor crashes face first into the dirt, crowning Yun-Sol as the lone survivor of the bloodbath. Up above, the VIPs are hyperventilating, witnessing the ultimate underdog wildcard that Jin-gok predicted earlier. Hyuk is incredibly salty about Wukong getting packed up by a kid mourning his lost hype for the legendary Black Soul technique. Still, taking the massive L, Hyuk officially crowns Yun-Sol as the absolute champion of the second trial. Instantly, Yun-Sol's vision glitches into an empty white void, catching his grandpa chilling in the distance. Sprinting over with pure joy, the wholesome reunion crashes hard the second the old man turns around, rocking hollow, empty eye sockets. The old man panics, screaming that everything is dark, slamming Yun-Sol straight back into a nightmare reality. Gasping for air, our boy snaps awake to the rocking motion of a ship's cabin. He pieces together that he blacked out from massive blood loss. But then the ultimate plot armor kicks in as he realizes he took lethal damage, yet somehow he is miraculously still breathing. Wait, zero pain. His shredded body feels completely brand new. Yun-Sol clicks the puzzle pieces together, some top-tier medic, straight out of the demonic palace, definitely patched him up. Glancing around the deck, he clocks the absolute unit standing nearby, and it instantly hits him. These absolute beasts are the ultimate survivors of that nightmare first trial. Bang! The ceiling hatch violently swings open. Jin Gok drops into view, barking orders to get off the boat, because they just hit ground zero for the next bloody phase, Hell Island. The instructor screams at the fresh meat, ordering them to march behind him as he reveals a massive cliffside dotted with grim-looking caves. Welcome to your new dorms, kids. The rules are brutally simple. Ditch your old drip, drop your personal weapons, and drag yourselves back outside, once you gear up in the standardized dark uniforms and basic blades provided. Oh, and get this, it's a total free-for-all to claim, whichever stone hole you want. Unsol's sharp eyes scan the rock face, immediately locking onto prime real estate. Meanwhile, the background is pure chaos. Two bozos are practically throwing hands over a flashy, spacious cave, screaming about their noble birthrights. A third guy slides into the drama, trying to play peacekeeper and begging them to chill, since there is literally a mountain of decent spots up for grabs. Watching this circus, Unsol is secretly laughing his head off. These naive idiots are acting like they are at summer camp, totally dropping their guard after surviving actual hell. He squints at their ruined but clearly designer fabrics. It screams trust fund energy, proving these brats roll deep with heavyweight elite families. The terrifying truth clicks in Unsol's brain. That brutal previous test was literally designed to butcher the expendable nobodies without catching heat. While our boy is deep in his Sherlock Holmes era, a chilling shadow drops behind him. It is Jin Gok, demanding to know why he is just standing there like a laggy NPC instead of claiming a base. Reality check. The ruthless instructor has been low-key obsessing over Unsol's survival skills, desperately waiting to analyze his choice. Pressured to move, Unsol casually points a finger. His target, a disgusting, cramped, mud-flooded hole in the wall. One of the rich snobs instantly starts roasting him, calling the filthy pigsty a perfect match for a peasant. But Jin Gok, his mind is blown. The instructor is staring at Unsol like he just found a tactical god. Sure, the opening looks like a claustrophobic nightmare, but the hidden interior is a massive, hollowed-out training facility. Even better, that narrow choke point makes sneaking in completely impossible. It is the ultimate camouflage, so ugly that nobody wants it, yet perfectly secure. Jin Gok is literally smirking, thrilled that this scrawny kid read the battlefield flawlessly. Cut to a few minutes later, the squad stomps out, rocking pitch-black uniforms, lining up to catch the instructor's latest lore drop. Jin Gok drops the bombshell. Hell Island packs 10 legendary training hubs, each housing a core style of the infamous 10 demonic sects. The craziest part, the rookies have full clearance to mix and match every single technique, or simply min-max one specific skill tree. Plus, there is zero curfew or strict timetable to follow. They can grind 24/7, snooze all day, or mess around. Unsol instantly feels a massive red flag going up. After dragging them through a literal slaughterhouse, there is absolutely no way this demonic cult is just handing out free vacation time. The other kids instantly start hyping each other up fiercely, arguing over the meta build. The hive mind quickly agrees that the Fire Rain Sword sect is the ultimate flex, universally ranked as the highest damage class available. Unsol just stands there, watching the sheep stampede toward the overpowered sword facility. He does not deny the Fire Rain style is insanely cracked, but it is useless garbage for a baseline noob like him, with zero internal energy. His brain goes into overdrive, scanning for a realistic survival strategy. Ditching the crowd, he strolls straight up to the Wandering Beast Pavilion. The place looked like an absolute haunted trap house. Lore has it that this specific branch fell off hard, barely clinging to its rank among the elite demonic pillars. The only thing saving them from total deletion is their insane track record of breeding freak-of-nature warriors back in the day. A core memory flashes his grandpa, dropping obscure knowledge about this exact weirdo faction years ago. Boom, the dirt randomly shatters, as a literal human head bursts from the soil like a jump scare. The subterranean freak glares up, asking if Unsol strolled over, chasing the delusion of becoming a top-tier demon master. Spoiler alert, this mole man is Sawu, the head honcho of the beast faction. Shaking off the pure weirdness, Unsol looks the guy dead in the eye, demanding to be trained in their forgotten combat style. Sawu just visually sweeps the kid from head to toe, instantly clocking his zero-muscle, paper-thin build. Doing the brutal math in his head, the master violently rejects him on the spot, refusing to waste his time. He bluntly warns Unsol that his weak stats are a death sentence. The training alone would crush his bones to dust. But Unsol holds his ground, dropping a massive lore bomb of his own. He hits back, claiming the streets say, mastering this specific beast style grants literal immortality in the wild. Sawu's jaw practically hits the dirt. How does this random punk know their deepest secrets? Sawu hits Unsol with a reality check. Their dying martial arts style isn't just hard, it's a straight-up death wish. Even absolute prodigies get folded trying to master it. Why? Because step 1 literally requires tearing your own body apart and rebuilding it from scratch. Looking the kid up and down, Sawu bets Yunsol wouldn't even last 24 hours before kicking the bucket. He tells him to pack his bags and bounce, but Yunsol drops the ultimate Uno reverse card. He bows perfectly, loud and proud, thanking the old man for officially accepting him as a disciple. Sawu is left speechless, realizing this kid is completely unhinged. Trapped by his own words, the old master reluctantly caves, but he makes sure to crush any sentimental vibes, claiming he's only babysitting because the demon palace forced his hand. Dusting off the dirt, Sawu finally emerges from his underground hideout. He demands to be called master, but the second Yunsol opens his mouth to drop his name, Sawu cuts him off. You don't have a name. You're just trainee number 1. Zero hesitation, zero warm-up. The brutal training kicks off instantly. Sawu throws up a bizarre hand sign. Boom. A massive shockwave slams right into Yunsol's face. The world instantly fades to black. He's completely blind. But right before the panic attack sets in, Sawu casually tells him to chill out. It's just a temporary vision sealing technique, a little secret trick passed down through their dying sect. Why the blackout? It's the absolute first step to unlocking the Wandering Beast path, their foundation-level martial art. Yunsol stands there completely baffled, so his master breaks it down. The whole point of this path is to overdrive the remaining senses until your reflexes rival an apex predator. Sawu drops another crazy lore bomb. Their style doesn't have a fixed form. It violently mutates depending on who wields it. That's exactly why this so-called basic technique has an incredibly terrifying fail rate. Almost nobody survives long enough to actually master the damn thing. But the payoff, absolute, god-tier animal instincts. Sporting a wicked grin, Sawu drops a morbid reality check. 99% of candidates are usually corpses by now. He tells the kid he's dipping out for 1 hour. His only homework, learn how to navigate total darkness. Once the old man vanishes, reality punches Yunsol in the gut. He assumed losing his eyes would automatically crank up his hearing and smell like some superhero movie. Spoiler alert, it didn't. 60 minutes. That's how long he has to survive out here blind, and right now every ticking second feels like an eternity. His brain goes into overdrive. He is still stuck in the middle of a cutthroat survival exam, meaning a random ambush right now would equal an instant game over. He visualizes an assassin leaping from the shadows. Pure raw adrenaline floods his veins, forcing his body to launch blindly through the air. But gravity humbles him fast. He eats dirt instantly, realizing that without his eyes, his center of gravity is completely trashed. Time to fix that. Fast forward 60 minutes. Sawu strolls back, fully expecting to find a sobbing mess of a kid. Instead, his jaw drops. Yunsol is flawlessly dodging and weaving through the air like a phantom. The master pieces it together immediately. The kid is shadowboxing invisible demons to fast-track his sensory adaptation. Still, Sawu puts on his best poker face. Time for a real vibe check. He slashes his blade straight at the rookie, daring him to dodge. From there, the training montage gets absolutely vicious. Skip ahead 72 hours. Yunsol has basically become a human punching bag. But the weirdest part, the kid hasn't complained once. No whining, no questioning the brutal methods. Unable to hold back, Sawu demands to know why he's taking this savage beatdown in absolute silence. Wiping away the sweat, Yunsol simply quotes his master's own words back to him. The core of their entire legacy is about reaching total enlightenment. So every single bruise and broken bone, it has to be a calculated step toward that goal. Sawu tries to hide his smirk. The kid absolutely nailed the assignment. Round 2, then, the old man barks. He explodes forward, closing the gap in a heartbeat. But this time, something clicks inside Yunsol's brain. His dormant instincts finally flare up, predicting the exact trajectory of the killing blow. He reads the attack perfectly, but his body is just too slow to evade. Evading is completely off the table. It is either block or get sliced in half. In a split-second flash of pure survival instinct, Yunsol yanks his blade upward, intercepting the master's strike right before impact. Sawu is absolutely shook. Pulling off a blind parry after just 3 days of training, that is straight up impossible. Regardless, the insane force of the blow still sends Yunsol flying onto his back. Out of nowhere, Sawu tosses a weird bamboo flask at his chest. Chug it, the old man orders. Yunsol pops the cork, expecting some stale tap water, but the second it hits his throat, he realizes he is dead wrong. An explosive surge of pure vitality rockets through his veins. It literally feels like every single damaged cell is being hit with a max-level healing potion. Turns out he just chugged the legendary spring spiritual water, a priceless elixir Sawu had hoarded for decades. Giving away his ultimate stash would make anyone sick, but watching the kid glow up, Sawu knows he just made the best investment of his life. It hits Sawu like a truck. He is staring straight at the absolute prodigy he has spent his entire life praying to find. Catching their breath, they clash all over again, cranking the sparring intensity up to an insane level. 2 minutes of relentless trading blows pass before Sawu abruptly drops his guard and bursts into manic laughter. The old master finally scored the jackpot. Right in the middle of the chaos, Unseol's vision snaps crystal clear. Staring him down, Sawu drops the tough guy act. He practically begs the kid to ditch the whole 10 Demon Master's dream and just roll with his specific crew as a legit top-tier disciple. The pitch is crazy good, stick with him, and Sawu swears he will morph this kid into a top 10 powerhouse of the entire demonic faction within a single decade. Honestly, Unseol almost bites. The offer sounds insanely sweet. He knows Sawu isn't blowing smoke, but then a dark memory flashes the terrifying aura of the warrior who slaughtered his grandfather. That bitter reality check hits hard. Mastering just the Wandering Beast Pavilion's playbook, it simply wouldn't pack enough firepower to exact his revenge. With total respect, Unseol shuts the offer down cold, stating he is locked in on his ultimate goal of becoming a true demon master. Sawu scoffs, dropping a harsh truth bomb. Mastering all the martial arts of the 10 demonic sects is a total pipe dream. He points out that even the legendary Grand Heavenly Demon Emperor, a literal god-tier genius who invented his own combat styles, could never pull that off. The veteran breaks it down perfectly. Every single technique demands a hyper-specific body type and a totally unique energy flow. He schools the rookie, explaining that even the absolute best prodigies max out at 2 or 3 styles. So tunneling all your focus into one specific path, that is the ultimate cheat code to conquering the demonic faction. But despite the heavy lecture, Unseol's eyes remain dead set. Realizing the kid is stubborn as a mule, Sawu reluctantly backs off. Still visibly bummed, the old man sighs, promising to hand down a completely different top-secret combat style. Hearing this, Unseol is utterly stunned. Up until now, he assumed he was only grinding the most basic entry-level moves, but Sawu smirks, revealing that their sect doesn't teach through dusty scrolls or rigid steps. The bombshell drops. Sawu confesses that every single spar they had was actually him demonstrating the legendary wild beast path. The pieces instantly click in Unseol's brain. Every brutal sword strike he barely dodged. They were the literal raw forms of that ultimate technique. Overwhelmed with immense gratitude, the young warrior drops into a deep, respectful bow. Brushing it off, Sawu waves his hand, claiming he was just following strict orders from the Demon Palace. Nothing personal, but Unseol refuses to let it slide. He swears to engrave this kindness into his soul, especially since the master literally fed him rare elixirs. Sawu just chuckles, telling him to leave that sentimental garbage at the door. In the cutthroat Jianghu, letting go of favors and grudges is the only way to survive. Their business officially concluded, Unseol kneels into one final heavy bow before vanishing into the shadows. Left alone, Sawu just stares at the empty space. Total awe washes over his face as he mutters, wondering what heaven dropped such an absolute monster into his lap. Trekking deep into the woods, Unseol's brain practically short-circuits. He is vividly feeling, hearing, and sensing every single vibrating leaf and breathing creature. It hits him, this crazy radar upgrade is a direct side effect of absorbing the wild beast path. But the sensory overload is pure torture. If he doesn't find the off switch right now, his brain will fry and he will never catch a wink of sleep. Gritting his teeth, he mentally slams the door on his heightened senses. Success. The overwhelming noise fades into a dull, manageable hum. Feeling normal again, he whips out his crumpled map. Locking eyes on his next target. The clock is ticking mercilessly on this hyper-condensed training camp. He has zero time to waste. Plotting his next major move, he locks onto the legacy of a legendary founder who actually went toe-to-toe with the great heavenly demon emperor, a staggering 700 years ago. We are talking about the absolute mastermind behind the Fire Rain sword sect. With the hourglass draining fast, Unseol gambles everything. Aiming straight for the most lethal faction of the 10 demonic sects is his only shot at surviving. Approaching the new territory, the sheer luxury of the place makes his old training grounds look like a muddy shed. Taking a breath, he knocks on the heavy wooden door. Inside, a grumpy instructor grumbles, wondering who would dare interrupt his peace. The heavy door creaks open, revealing Jin Gak, whose jaw practically hits the floor the second he locks eyes with Unseol. Unfazed, the young warrior throws a polite bow, formally requesting to master the legendary arts of the Fire Rain sword sect. But honestly, Unseol is quietly freaking out inside, realizing this Jin Gak guy is a high-ranking master here. Snapping out of his daze, Jin Gak signals for the kid to tag along. He drops a harsh reality check, pointing out that the early bird recruits have totally smashed the beginner trials and are already sweating through the intermediate phase. Basically, this place runs on a brutal 3-tier system, rookie intermediate, and absolute nightmare level advanced. Staring the kid down, Jin Gak demands to know why on earth he ghosted them for 2 whole weeks before crawling to the Fire Rain sect. Keeping it incredibly chill, Unseol admits he was busy grinding techniques over at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Catching the hint, Jin Gak throws out a sarcastic question asking if he somehow managed to grasp the wild beast path. Eun Seol just nods deadpan. Jin-gak freezes his brain entirely, refusing to process that this kid is a literal cheat code. The guy literally conquered the wild beast path in a mere 14 days. While he definitely knows he's a straight-up prodigy, he's pretty convinced Sabu just kicked him to the curb because he couldn't handle his crazy potential. The second they step foot inside the training dojo, Jin-gak drops the playful act. He looks Eun Seol dead in the eye, announcing himself as the head honcho running the rookie gauntlet. Staring him down, Jin-gak questions if the kid actually has the guts to master the legendary Fire Rain blade techniques, warning him that he might be better off packing up and finding some lower-tier dojo. Unfazed Eun Seol smoothly brushes off the warning, making it crystal clear that his sights are locked exclusively on the Fire Rain sect's deadly combat style. Catching that unwavering resolve, Jin-gak violently stomps the floorboards, magically kicking up a heavy training scroll right into his hand. Tossing it over, he instructs the rookie that this ancient text holds the foundational blueprints for the absolute Fire Rain 13 forms. He orders the kid to memorize the pages and start grinding immediately, but Eun Seol just stares at the parchment completely utterly lost to him. It's just a bunch of random ink scribbles slapped onto paper, leaving him absolutely clueless on how to swing a blade. Catching on to this, Jin-gak's jaw practically hits the floor, demanding to know if the boy even knows how to decipher basic martial arts scrolls. Eun Seol drops an absolute bombshell, casually admitting he is functionally illiterate when it comes to combat text, since he hadn't touched a single weapon or taken a single lesson before the massive tournament. That wild confession sends a literal cold sweat down the veteran's neck, leaving him completely paralyzed with disbelief. Thinking he misheard, the master asks twice, but the kid doubles down, swearing he walked into this world completely blind to martial arts. But instead of throwing him out, Jin-gak feels a massive surge of hype, connecting the dots on the insane stunts the boy already pulled off, realizing that with top-tier coaching, this raw diamond could evolve into an absolute monster. Regaining his composure, the instructor checks if the kid can at least read normal words, even if the combat diagrams look like gibberish, which gets a quick nod. Reading aloud, Eun Seol scans through the introductory text, basically a mental checklist, to lock in before actually swinging the steel. The rookie attempts to mimic the stance, but his form is so comically trash that it sends the master spiraling back into pure panic. He is utterly mind-blown that he literally has to spoon-feed basic human motor skills and posture to a guy, competing in a brutal arena designed to crown one of the legendary 10 demon masters. Sighing heavily, Jin-gak closes the distance and physically molds the boy's limbs into the correct fighting stance, barking orders to loosen up his muscles so his center of gravity stops locking up. The literal second the tip leaves his mouth, Eun Seol snaps into the perfect alignment, leaving the veteran quietly geeking out at how terrifyingly fast the kid absorbs information without breaking a sweat. With his foundation finally rock solid, the master declares, "It is officially time to unleash the Fire Rain 13 forms." Tossing a heavy practice blade into his hands, he begins breaking down the intricate footwork and razor-sharp angles required for the technique. True to his freakish nature, our protagonist perfectly mirrors every single micro-movement the veteran throws at him. Watching from the sidelines, Jin-gak is absolutely spellbound. Finally swallowing the brutal truth, this kid's natural talent is borderline illegal. Fast forward through a grueling montage of non-stop drills, the master orders him to project a phantom opponent in his mind and execute the 13 strikes. Pausing for a second, Eun Seol struggles to grasp the whole shadowboxing concept until his teacher drops the hammer. This mental exercise is the absolute ultimate test he must crush to earn his ticket into the intermediate fighting bracket. It's all about manifesting raw, undeniable killing aura straight into his foundational strikes. Hearing those stakes, a spark ignites in the rookie's eyes. This is his golden ticket to finally flex his true power, and he's ready to speedrun this whole process. Unsurprisingly, the psychological target he instantly paints in his mind is the exact same scumbag who brutally murdered his grandpa. Gripping the hilt tightly, our boy unsheathes his weapon and erupts into the very first sequence of the 13-form sequence, dripping with aggressive surgical hatred. The veteran master physically recoils, totally blindsided by the ferocious velocity and terrifying fluidity of the kid's blade work. Tearing his way through the remaining 13 steps, a massive red flag pops up in the instructor's brain. The boy is actively glitching the traditional choreography. What is historically designed to be an elegant flowing dance of steel is being violently mutated into a hyper-lethal jagged slaughter technique. Jin-gak's brain practically short-circuits trying to process this madness, knowing full well that remixing core martial fundamentals on the fly is a god-tier flex, reserved exclusively for absolute grandmasters. The air turns freezing cold as the master senses a genuinely demonic bloodlust bleeding from every single swing, radiating the exact same energy of a man staring down his worst nightmare. The veteran is deeply rattled, struggling to accept that his proudly orthodox noble fighting style is being casually warped into an executioner's tool right in front of his eyes. Watching this terrifying display, the grim reality sets in. This kid definitely survived some seriously traumatic, twisted stuff in his past. Midway through the blood-pumping sequence, the protagonist suddenly catches onto his own drift. Realizing he is subconsciously hacking the ancient 13-form system, he immediately theorizes that the primal instincts of his wild beast path are hijacking his muscle memory. While merging the two overpowered styles sounds like an absolutely epic combo, his combat IQ kicks in, warning him that forcing them together would birth a completely unrecognizable mutant discipline instead of the pure fire rain art. Locking that realization away, he pivots straight back into the natural fire rain, 13 forms, radiating absolute menace. This time, he's a completely different beast. Visualizing a phantom enemy, he absolutely erupts, letting pure rage take the wheel. Jin-gak can only stand there completely jaw-dropped. The veteran instructor has to hand it to him. Yoon-sol's closing speed is absolutely insane. Completely locked into the zone, Yoon-sol treats the illusion like flesh and blood. In his mind, letting this guy breathe isn't an option, so he dumps his entire arsenal into a single sequence. Every ounce of built-up aggression explodes outward. He unleashes a barrage of lethal pinpoint slashes, meant to completely obliterate his foe. But pushing past the red line comes with a massive cost. His footing crumbles and the blade slips right out of his sweaty grip. He just lost to his own shadow, but instead of chewing him out, Jin-gak is thoroughly mind-blown. Expecting a massive lecture, Yoon-sol is practically shell-shocked when Jin-gak casually drops a "you passed." The veteran breaks it down. This exam was never about perfect form. It was a raw test of sword comprehension and how violently he could apply the fire rain. 13 forms under actual combat stress. Scooping the fallen blade off the dirt, Jin-gak hands it back, officially confirming he smashed every single hidden requirement. He hypes the kid up, calling his sheer mastery over the technique straight up terrifying. Next stop, the intermediate chamber. Yoon-sol is practically glowing with gratitude. He knows exactly how much of a headache, an absolute nightmare it must have been to teach a total zero-skill rookie the art of the blade from scratch. Dipping into a deep, respectful bow, Yoon-sol pours out his thanks for the brutal but necessary grind. The instructor tells him to keep that same energy, but then his tone drops. He admits he felt that raw, suffocating bloodlust pouring off the kid's blade. Parting wisdom: don't let that dark, murderous aura swallow you whole. As the two martial artists finally go their separate ways, it finally clicks in Jin-gak's head. Mastering the wild beast path in just 14 days wasn't a fluke. The kid is a walking cheat code when it comes to absorbing knowledge. That freakish adaptability is exactly why he's skyrocketing into the intermediate chamber, miles ahead of the instructor's original timeline. Sure, Jin-gak used to heavily doubt whether this rookie had the chops to survive the next level. But after witnessing that explosive sparring session, all doubts are permanently erased. Honestly, Jin-gak is willing to bet serious money that the notorious intermediate instructor Champion Wukong is going to fanboy over Yoon-sol's raw potential the second he sees him in action. Cut to the intermediate chamber, and it's a completely different vibe. Zero warm welcomes here. The instructor instantly barks at the newcomer to get lost. Claiming the roster is totally maxed out, Cheon throws absolute ice at the kid. Why? Because in his eyes, taking several weeks just to scrape past the beginner level is a massive red flag. The grumpy master straight up roasts him, claiming a bottom-tier talent like him would get eaten alive in this dojo. Refusing to back down, Yoon-sol claps back, explaining his late arrival was purely due to grinding his stats over at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Hearing that name drop doesn't magically fix Cheon's attitude. Instead, the cynical elder instantly assumes the kid simply raged quit the brutal wild beast regimen. Couldn't handle the heat right. Still, rules are rules. Since the boy holds a valid passing slip, Cheon reluctantly grumbles at him to grab a spot amongst the sweaty mob of candidates. Jumping right back into lecture mode, Cheon introduces their next nightmare, the Fire Rain, splitting Thundersword. He warns the class that this style relies on hyperspeed twitch reflexes. Fumble the footwork, and you'll literally slice off your own limbs. He doesn't sugarcoat it either. Pulling this flashy technique off in a real deathmatch is brutally difficult, giving off the exact same clunky vibes as the 13 forms. But regardless of the struggle, it's mandatory curriculum. The goal here isn't to rack up kills, it's to forge fundamental blade control. Time for practical application. Cheon barks a name, yanking a cocky student named Byeok Song front and center. The task: pick a sparring partner. A vicious predatory grin stretches across Byeok's face. He double-checks if there are zero restrictions on his choice, getting a swift nod from the master. Predictably, the bully locks eyes dead on the fresh meat. Finger pointed straight at Yoon-sol, he demands the newbie. Cheon immediately tries to veto this toxic matchup, but Byeok hits him with a massive logic trap. You literally just said anyone. The instructor scrambles to shut it down, arguing there's zero educational value in beating up a guy who literally walked through the doors 5 minutes ago. He orders Byuk to choose a veteran, but before the argument escalates, Unsol steps up. Voice completely steady, the rookie casually accepts the challenge. The sheer audacity leaves Cheon stunned. Flexing his pedigree just a bit, Unsol mentions he was forged by Jingak himself. Plus, he firmly believes the fastest way to level up is by trading blows with live targets. The instructor rolls his eyes, assuming this is just fragile teenage ego talking. But whatever, he washes his hands of it. Giving the green light, Cheon sarcastically wishes them luck on ever reaching the advanced tier. Meanwhile, our local bully is practically throwing a mental party. He thinks he just won the jackpot, a helpless, low-level punching bag that he can absolutely style on without consequences. In fact, things are about to get really dark. This psycho is fully plotting to catch a body just to flex his sword skills for the class. Stepping up in front of the entire class, these dudes grab their wooden practice blades and lock in for an absolute showdown. Byuk smirks, tossing a fake compliment about our boy's guts, before throwing serious shade, claiming that mere courage will not keep you breathing in the brutal martial arts world. Zero hesitation, the guy launches forward like a missile, only to slice pure air, as Unsol casually sidesteps the strike. The cocky senior raises an eyebrow, completely convinced this newbie is just running on pure beginner's luck. Ramping up the aggression, he swings wild, finally forcing our protagonist to actually cross blades instead of just dancing out of range. Feeling the clunky vibrations from that block, a wicked grin spreads across the bully's face. To him, that awkward parry screams total amateur. Treating this whole match like a massive joke, he starts toying with his prey, eventually busting out the flashy thundering sword technique just to flex. Plot twist though, our main character stays absolutely iced out. He weaves through every single slash like he is reading the Matrix, making his opponent sweat bullets of pure frustration. Instructor Cheon catches onto this vibe instantly. Watching from the sidelines, he realizes this loudmouth senior might actually be absolute garbage with a blade. Meanwhile, our underdog is out here ghosting through lethal strikes, straight up reading the guy's moves before they even happen. This insane footwork drops a massive bombshell on the instructor. He begins piecing together the impossible. Did this kid actually master the infamous wild beast path? Being a seasoned veteran, Cheon knows exactly how brutally unforgiving that specific training route truly is. Sure, it sounds like foundational stuff, but only grandmasters usually crack that code. There is just zero chance a scrub pulled it off in 14 days at least. That is the lie. Byuk is frantically telling himself right now. Getting tired of the cat and mouse game, Cheon suddenly shuts down the playtime. He barks at our boy, strictly reminding him that running away does not win fights. The whole point of this brutal assessment is to grade their actual offensive blade work, not just their ability to duck and weave. Message received loud and clear. Flipping his internal switch, our guy finally goes on the offensive, charging right back using the legendary Fire Rain 13 forms. The senior just scoffs, feeling absolutely zero danger. To his arrogant eyes, the stance looks completely busted and wrong compared to the textbook version. His ego inflates to maximum capacity. He genuinely believes he can just swat away the incoming attack without even breaking a sweat. Reality check incoming. The sheer overwhelming pressure of the descending wooden blade immediately shatters his confidence, leaving him desperately scrambling to survive the impact. Panic completely scrambles his brain. Is this newbie actually flexing a custom variant just to mess with him? It feels like the ultimate disrespect. Or worse, is this whole performance just a massive clout chase to grab the instructor's attention? Securing a fast-track ticket straight into the elite training brackets would definitely be the ultimate power move. Refusing to be publicly humiliated by a rookie, the desperate upperclassman completely snaps. He taps into absolute darkness, unleashing the forbidden Asura sword style. Putting all his chips on the table, he executes the horrific blood-shattering strike, aiming to permanently erase our protagonist from existence right then and there. Now, this specific execution is a straight-up death sentence from a notorious cult, but thanks to a massive loophole where the instructor never officially banned lethal techniques, Cheon is legally handcuffed from interfering. But then, jaws drop. Staring death right in the face, our boy's footing remains flawlessly anchored to the earth. That nagging suspicion hits the veteran teacher like a freight train once more. This absolute menace actually conquered the beast path. Fighting through heavy denial, the pro watches in stunned silence as the young fighter elegantly dances through the lethal flurry of wood. Pushed past his absolute limits, the psycho opponent cues up his most unhinged ultimate, the Bloody Wind, Warping Moon. The sheer audacity leaves the supervising teacher utterly speechless. Time slows down. The crazed senior launches himself into the stratosphere, bringing down absolute hellfire in a blink-and-you-miss-it collision. But when the dust finally settles on the arena floor, it is not our guy taking the hit. His practice blade is completely buried dead center into his attacker's ribs. Dripping with pure main character energy, he casually yanks the weapon back, finalizing that brutal 13th form. The crushed bully violently hacks up Crimson, before collapsing like a sack of bricks. Lights out. The dude is completely flatlined from a single counterattack. The entire courtyard violently erupts into absolute terrified silence As the surrounding students completely glitch out, they frantically try to process the fact that their senior just caught a permanent dirt nap. Meanwhile, our unbothered king casually strolls over to rack his weapon, leaving the stunned teacher to examine the wreckage. One quick pulse check confirms the grim reality that wooden stick shattered a lethal pressure point. Turning his attention to our unbothered protagonist, Cheon demands to know if he secretly trained under the legendary Wandering Knight Pavilion. A cold rejection leaves the veteran with only one remaining question. He asks the impossible aloud, did this kid actually conquer the feral training manual in a mere 14 days? Shrugging it off, the boy delivers a stone-cold response. He boldly claims that he only skimmed the fundamental mechanics. The instructor lets out a cynical, twisted chuckle. After witnessing that absolute bloodbath, the word basic feels like a massive insult. Nothing about that slaughter was entry level. Dripping with sarcasm, the teacher asks who taught him how to lie so smoothly. Our boy starts cooking up an excuse, but gets instantly silenced. The veteran just points at the fresh corpse, ordering him to mop up his own kill. Almost immediately, the peanut gallery starts acting up, whining about how catching a body during a routine warm-up drill crosses way over the line. The entire mob practically begs for an expulsion, but the master swiftly nukes that soft mentality. Stepping up, he drops a massive reality check on the crybabies. Sure, the sign on the door says training facility, but they need to wake the hell up. He violently reminds them of their exact coordinates. Welcome to Hell Island. Out here, if you swing with fatal intentions, you better be fully prepared to get permanently sent to the Shadow Realm in return. Letting that dark warning simmer, the merciless instructor restarts the clock. Terrified but compliant, the surviving recruits immediately lock blades back into their chaotic duels. Anyone who folds under the pressure gets instantly booted from the compound, taking home a pathetic one-way ticket for completely failing the brutal initiation. Cheon straight up tells the rejects to pack their bags and find a new dojo, because their era with the Fire Rain sect is officially dead. The washouts start begging for a do-over, but Cheon immediately shuts them down. He admits they survived round 1 purely off raw muscle, but mastering the Fire Rain sword requires insane hidden potential to break past their absolute limits. Since they lacked that inner spark, they failed. Once the hall finally empties out, Cheon catches Unseo just awkwardly standing there. He asks the kid why he is still lingering around. Completely lost, Unseo asks if he is supposed to dip too, and Cheon confirms it. He reminds the boy that he secured the win and earned the right to level up to the advanced chamber. But then, Unseo drops a bombshell, claiming he would rather stay in the intermediate zone. Cheon is completely baffled. Why nerf yourself like that? Unseo casually explains that the Fire Rain 13 forms is literally his entire moveset, and he has absorbed absolutely zero knowledge from the intermediate level yet. Cheon is stunned. This kid literally unlocked the Wild Beast path to predict the attack of Byrok, yet he is acting like a total noob. Refusing to back down, Unseo firmly stands his ground, insisting his skill tree is completely empty. Catching that stubborn aura, Cheon caves in and agrees to personally train him in the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, the ultimate evolution of the 13 forms. But he drops a heavy warning, declaring that he absolutely despises sneaky tryhards trying to flex on him. His eyes go cold as he promises to literally slice his head off if he ever catches him hiding any secret sword techniques besides the basic 13 forms. Flash forward 4 days. Unseo is still grinding under the master, surviving absolutely brutal training sessions. Cheon practically x-rays his entire combat style and finally confirms the harsh truth. The kid is genuinely completely clueless about basic sword mechanics, proving he is basically starting from ground zero. Still, his grind set is unmatched. Cheon witnesses this raw, unyielding hunger, blazing in the eyes of the boy, gripping the sword like his life depends on it. Everything suddenly clicks for the master. This is exactly how Unseo managed to hack the Wild Beast path in just 2 weeks. And to make things even crazier, Unseo is already flexing the Thundering Sword technique, proving his learning speed is straight up glitched. The kid is going full beast mode when Cheon suddenly commands him to freeze. He drops the bomb that Unseo has already mastered the core mechanics of the Fire Rain Thundering Sword. Unseo looks incredibly sus about this, prompting Cheon to break down how the technique actually works. It is all about violently twisting your core to chain together multiple rapid strikes. But the master points out a massive flaw. These flashy moves are basically useless in a real bloody deathmatch. Yet Cheon picked up on a chilling detail. Unseo throws every single practice swing with pure, unadulterated killer intent, swinging like he wants to rip somebody apart. Unseo is visibly confused, thinking combat skills only exist to catch bodies in the real world. Cheon steps in with some harsh truth, admitting that bloodlust is a requirement for the demonic arts. However, to unlock the god-tier levels of the Fire Rain sword, you have to ditch the urge to kill. He bluntly warns the boy to wipe that murderous vibe out of his system, otherwise his own martial arts will literally backfire and destroy him from the inside. The realization hits Unseo like a truck. This master is echoing the exact same warning Jin Gak gave him earlier. Cheon then gets incredibly real, confessing that he used to be blinded by that same dark energy, turning into a monster who slaughtered everyone in his path. But that dark path completely stripped away his honor, causing his legendary combat skills to shatter. Cheon drops some deep wisdom. Lethal moves might create a fake ego boost, tricking you into thinking you are reaching the apex, but they actually act as a massive roadblock to mastering true swordsmanship. Speaking with serious dad energy, Cheon commands him to let the bloodlust go. Hearing those profound words, a core memory unlocks in the mind of Unseo. He suddenly flashes back to the golden rule his grandfather taught him about blade wielders. The old man claimed that anyone who picks up a sword is running from a deeply tragic past soaked in pure misery, which explains why martial artists in the MURIM get incredibly defensive about their backstories. Unseo straight up asks why he is trauma dumping on him right now. Cheon softly replies that he just wants the kid to know they share the same dark demons. Then the master finally asks for his actual name. Once he hears it, a light bulb goes off. This is the exact same survivor from round 2 that Jin Gak had warned him about earlier. Cheon's tone shifts, warning Unseo that he is facing a massive red flag. And when the boy asks what the deal is, the master hits him with cold facts. He is severely lacking in combat fundamentals. He reminds him that his rivals have been grinding in the dojo since they were literally toddlers, warning him that the power gap is only going to get insanely worse from here. Before Unseo can even think about wielding the legendary Fire Rain sword in the advanced tier, Cheon drops a massive reality check he needs to absolutely master the basics first. Without a rock-solid foundation, that fiery blade will just destroy him. To bridge that gap, Cheon decides to pass down his own custom-built, insanely overpowered skill, the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. But there is a massive catch. Before they even throw a single punch, Cheon holds up his hands and confesses that he completely fried his own nerve endings, just trying to perfect this crazy art. The risk factor is off the charts, and if our boy makes one wrong move, he could literally paralyze his arms forever. Mess this up and the advanced chamber becomes a pipe dream, leaving him completely powerless. Staring death in the face, Cheon asks if he seriously wants to gamble his limbs. Unseo doesn't even blink. He basically says screw the arms, he would gladly trade his own soul if it guarantees him his bloody revenge. Fast forward one grueling month, and our guy has actually locked down the unrivaled lightning and thunder, and earned his golden ticket straight out of the intermediate zone. Cheon is honestly mind-blown by how crazy fast he picked it up, but Unseo is practically beating himself up, feeling like he wasted way too much time. Armed with his deadly new skill set, he is finally ready to crash the big leagues. The second he kicks open the doors to the advanced chamber, the entire room freezes, locking their eyes on him. The bloodlust radiating from these elites is on a whole other level, which makes total sense, considering they have all witnessed the absolute monster he can be in combat. Unseo just scoffs at the dark irony society trashes undertakers who bury the dead, but treats cold-blooded killers like total rock stars. Cutting the tension, the instructor barks at him to grab a seat, because class is officially in session. Since fresh blood just entered the room, the master decides to break down the hardcore philosophy behind the Fire Rain sword, walking them through the legendary 7 teachings. He preaches that true lethal force comes from perfectly distributing power through every single muscle to forge an unbreakable stance. Glancing at the manual sitting on his desk, Unseo gets a massive reality check. He would be completely clueless right now if he hadn't grinded those brutal intermediate basics first. Once the boring lecture wraps up, the instructor signals Unseo to follow his lead. He drags the newbie out to a secluded courtyard, hidden behind the dojo. Out of nowhere, the master drops a massive truth bomb. Real slayers can easily drop an armed target completely barehanded. When you hit that god tier level, you do not even need a blade to unleash devastating sword techniques. Just to prove his point, the old man snaps a flimsy tree branch, aims it right at Unseo's throat, and hits him with a serious pop quiz. He demands to know exactly what his next move is, if he gets ambushed with 0 weapons to defend himself. The instructor twists the knife, revealing that while Unseo was playing catch-up, the other elites already mastered the Shining Mystique, the highly coveted first form of the Fire Rain sword, which explains why they are already doing advanced theory crafting. The master makes it crystal clear fail to answer this riddle, and his training is officially over. With his entire future on the line, the pressure is absolutely suffocating. Unseo takes a heavy breath, locks eyes, and coldly states that if he lacks a weapon, he will just steal his enemy's blade. He instantly lunges forward to snatch the twig straight out of the master's grip. But before his fingertips even brush a leaf, the old man literally teleports and materializes right behind his back. The instructor roasts him, calling his attack sloppy and wildly impulsive. Unseo, however, completely ignores the trash talk, his brain glitching as he tries to process how the hell this guy speed blitzed him so fast. Refusing to take the massive Unseo charges again, but gets absolutely styled on every single time. The frustration boils over, because he is practically chasing a ghost. He knew this elite master would be tough to touch, but being totally blind to his movements is an ego-shattering wake-up call. Panic starts to set in as he realizes his future, in the advanced tier, is totally doomed if he doesn't pull off a miracle right now. Backed into a corner, Unseo decides to go all out and detonate his wild beast path at absolute maximum power for a one-shot gamble. Fully locked in, he explodes off the ground, aiming dead at that branch. But a millisecond before making contact, a massive force blasts him across the yard. He smashes into the dirt, tasting total defeat. But right as the despair hits, the old man blurs to his side and gives him an approving slap on the back. The master bursts into a booming laugh, dropping the massive plot twist he somehow passed the savage test. Unseo is completely stunned, totally mind-boggled since he spent the whole fight swinging at air. The master waves off his confusion and hypes him up with the ultimate reward. He starts training the legendary Shining Mystique tomorrow. He orders the rookie to show up extra early, ready to absolutely outgrind the rest of the class. Unseo practically glows hearing those words. He bows, tossing out a quick thanks for the mercy teach before dipping out of the courtyard. But the second his back is turned, the old master glances down at the twig still gripped in his fist. Crunch. Half the foliage crumbles into dust. Plot twist: our boy actually landed that hit. The master just launched him into orbit on purpose, totally staging a massive fail to keep him humble. Deep down, the old man is hyped, secretly betting all his chips on this kid's insane potential. Cut to the forest. Instead of chilling out, Unseo decides to keep his mana running hot. In this cutthroat world, dropping your guard means catching a blade to the neck. Right on cue, the hairs on his arms stand up. His crazy sharp instincts instantly lock onto the targets. 5 absolute tryhards step out of the tree line practically foaming at the mouth. They start barking about how he's been flexing way too hard since the middle tier, and now they're here to serve him a brutal reality check. These bozos actually call themselves the 5 Peak Swords, hyping themselves up as prodigies right before promising to end his entire run. But Unseo doesn't even waste breath arguing with these NPCs. He keeps his radar dialed to the max, peering straight through their noisy distraction to spot the real threat, a 6th presence blending perfectly into the dead of night. Right as the goon squad rushes in, a massive shadow materializes behind their boss and absolutely flattens him. One hit. The leader eats dirt, and the remaining 4 instantly freeze, pure panic flashing in their eyes as they whip around. Standing over the body is Seo Jinha, the absolute unit of their training batch. Jinha doesn't even spare the scrubs a glance. He locks eyes with Unseo and demands a private chat. The lackeys stutter out a pathetic, "What's your problem, man?" But Jinha completely shuts them down, barking at them to beat it, before they end up catching hands too. Taking the hint, the 4 grab their unconscious buddy and sprint for the hills, dropping some hollow threats over their shoulders. Watching this go down, Unseo realizes Jinha's power level is genuinely off the charts. The second the forest goes quiet, the heavy hitter pivots back, dropping a totally cryptic bombshell. He levels his blade right at Unseol's throat and hisses, "Who are you really working for?" leaving our guy completely lost. Rewind to earlier that afternoon. The master dragged Unseo to the front of the dojo for a live demo. Gripping his hilt, the kid inhaled a lungful of air, before unleashing an absolute masterclass in blade work. He blurred across the dirt for solid minutes, finally sliding to a halt, to reveal the courtyard floor shredded to pieces. Even the stone-faced mentor caught off guard, realizing this rookie somehow infused raw, murderous aura right into the forms. As the dust settles on that insane flex, the master summons the next student, none other than Seo Jinha. The heavy hitter stomps up to the platform, shooting a death glare that could freeze fire right as they cross paths. Instead of demonstrating the standard fire rain strike like he was supposed to, Jinha goes totally rogue. He unleashes a customized combo designed specifically to shut down Unseol's entire kit, a blatant, incredibly hostile warning shot. Snapping back to the dark forest, Unseo demands to know what that cryptic interrogation is all about. Jinha loses his cool, shouting at him to quit playing the clueless victim. The big guy spills the tea. He knows for a fact that half the people marooned on this death rock aren't actually here to chase that 10 Demon Master title. Hearing that the gears in our protagonist's head finally click into place, it hits him an open invite to master the 10 legendary dark arts. Sounds legendary, but the whole setup felt ridiculously chaotic and weirdly sloppy. The real agenda. This entire boot camp is pulling double duty, acting as a massive, lethal mousetrap. Keeping his voice dead serious, Unseo asks outright if they've got a rat sneaking around the facility. The sheer honesty in his tone instantly diffuses the tension. Jinha clicks his weapon back into its scabbard, grumbling that he clearly targeted the wrong suspect. Before fading back into the trees, he drops one last warning to keep a low profile, swearing he'll end him if he keeps acting so sus. Standing alone in the dark, Unseo absorbs the crazy revelation that this academy is hiding massive secrets right under their noses. Honestly, it makes total sense he completely missed the red flags. He's been grinding non-stop just to survive, Shaking off the paranoia, he locks back into his grind set. Spy or no spy. He's gonna have to crush everyone in his path regardless. Fast forward a bit and the master drops a bombshell on the squad boot camp is officially over. He delivers this intense borderline cheesy hype speech, sending them off with brutal blessings for their journey into the martial underworld. Out of nowhere, massive gongs start ringing out. While the recruits are totally bugging out, the mentor barks at them to march straight to Stone Mountain, right in the dead center of the Death Trap Island. The scene cuts to the entire class huddled around the rocky peak, staring down the big boss himself, sweeping his gaze over the surviving candidates to make sure nobody skipped out. The Grandmaster smirks and announces that the third stage of hell is about to kick off. Panic instantly ripples through the crowd. Every single recruit freezes in pure confusion at the word third, since they were universally hyped up to take the second exam, leaving just one guy grinning because he already knows what's really going down. Instructor Jingok steps up and drops a massive bombshell on the recruits, announcing that their dorms are officially going on lockdown. No one is stepping foot back in their rooms until the top 10 Demon Masters are crowned. He warns everyone to speedrun the caves and pack their essentials before the doors shut for good. When a clueless rookie asks how these masters will actually be chosen, the head instructor visibly cringes, mind blown that they have survived this long without realizing what kind of twisted game they are actually playing. He drops the act and spells it out, flat out telling the recruits that it is a literal battle royale. Hyuk steps in, confirming they need to slaughter each other, until exactly 10 survivors remain standing. He makes it clear that there are absolutely zero rules. Running, hiding, and dirty tactics are all fair game. But every game has a catch. As the clock ticks down, the playable zone is going to shrink, and anyone caught lagging outside the safe boundaries will get instantly wiped out by the executioners looming right behind him. These executioners are straight-up nightmare fuel. Draped in cloaks, just looking at them is enough to make a grown man shake. A cold sweat drips down Unsol's face as their suffocating bloodlust hits him from across the yard, proving these guys are absolute monsters on the battlefield. Suddenly, some brave soul interrupts, asking Hyuk if hunting the executioners is on the table. Hyuk bursts into a maniacal laugh, genuinely hyped that somebody in this crowd has actual main character energy. He smirks, telling the group that they can totally throw down with the cloaked assassins if they have a death wish. Then comes the ultimate twist. Anyone crazy enough to actually body an executioner instantly secures their spot in the top 10, turning the whole trial completely upside down. Reality instantly crashes down on the crowd as they realize that trying to take down one of these bosses is a million times harder than just hunting their fellow classmates. Hyuk wraps up by reminding everyone that making alliances and backstabbing each other is highly encouraged, since surviving by any means necessary is the only way to secure that coveted Demon Master title. The second they are cut loose, the recruits raid the caves for supplies, and the absolute chaos begins. Unsol immediately dips, putting massive distance between himself and the pack, fully aware that his crazy stunts during training basically painted a giant target on his back. He knows a massive hit squad is coming for him, just like that time the Elite Five tried to corner him in the woods. Survival mode activates and he sprints straight for his ultimate safe zone, the Wandering Pavilion. But the second he arrives, he realizes the terrain feels weirdly off. He drops low, running his hands over the dirt to read the subtle changes. When his radar suddenly pings, someone is sprinting straight toward his location. Out of nowhere, a panicked guy bursts from the tree line with a hit squad right on his heels, desperately screaming at Unsol to save his life. Unsol instantly grips his blade, fully prepared to start swinging if this is a trap. The bleeding guy swears he will owe him big time if Unsol just helps him dodge the execution squad tailing him. With eagle eyes, Unsol scans the threat, noticing the deep, gnarly gashes on the guy's body, confirming this dude is not faking it. He tracks the 3 heavily armed pursuers closing in, wondering if they are an established squad. Unsol wants absolutely nothing to do with their drama, but this loudmouth is about to blow his perfect cover. Left with 0 options, he drags the stranger into one of the secret dirt bunkers buried right beneath the pavilion. Seconds later, the hunting party rolls up to an empty clearing, completely baffled. They stomp around cluelessly, having no idea their prey is literally holding his breath right under their boots. After sweeping the zone and coming up empty-handed, the frustrated trio calls it quits and takes their hunt elsewhere. Waiting until the footsteps completely fade, Unsol and his new deadweight companion pop back out to the surface. The guy is practically crying tears of joy, hyping up Unsol for the insane save. But while this guy is busy yapping, Unsol is already connecting the dots. He realizes that Master Sawu dug these fresh tunnels specifically for his survival. Down in the dark, his sensory range from the beast path had leveled up insanely, mapping out the terrain way past his normal limits. He could literally feel the Earth's heartbeat, reading the dirt like a radar screen. It hits him. Sawu wasn't just hiding him, he was secretly teaching him how to fight using seismic vibrations. The chatterbox finally drops his name, introducing himself as Gwai Myong-ryong from the infamous Blood Sect. He asks for Yoon-sol's name in return, but our boy just straight up ghosts him, uninterested in playing camp. Yoon-sol instantly moves out toward his next waypoint. Desperate Myong-ryong begs him to hold up, asking to squat up so he doesn't get clipped. Guillaume pitches himself as a teammate, claiming Yoon-sol earned his absolute trust by busting him out earlier. Our boy gives him the total silent treatment, but Guillaume takes that as a massive green light. Looking like a hyped-up golden retriever, he immediately tails him, forcing this random duo into existence. Fast forward a few minutes, our protagonist suddenly drops down, pressing his palm flat against the dirt, to read the tremors beneath them. Like a human radar, he instantly picks up the shockwaves of an all-out brawl, going down just ahead, prompting him to pivot and suggest they completely bypass the absolute chaos. This sensory flex leaves Guillaume totally mind-blown, begging for a tutorial. Classic Yoon-sol, though he straight up airs him and keeps moving. Out of nowhere, the wind carries a voice. One of the brawlers screaming about getting blood payback for his slaughtered squad. That single word hits our boy like a lightning strike, sending deep, chilling shivers down his spine. He instantly recognizes a kindred spirit chained to the exact same vendetta. Spotting the dark shift in his vibe, Guillaume nervously asks, "What is up?" Cutting him off cold, Yoon-sol abruptly announces a total change of plans. Forget laying low, our guy is diving headfirst into the bloodbath. But right as they step into the war zone, a camper chilling in the canopy locks eyes with our protagonist and instantly launches a sneak attack. Too bad Yoon-sol parries the strike effortlessly, totally shattering the confidence of this wannabe ninja. Panicking, the guy screams, demanding to know how a non-assassin casually dismantled his top-tier forbidden stealth move. Instead of dropping a lore dump, Yoon-sol answers by cleanly bisecting the dude with one merciless horizontal swing. Internally, he admits that stealth art would have been a massive headache if he had not mastered the wild beast path. With the main event still raging, he decides to bail out the cornered Avenger strictly so he can interview him about the sweet taste of payback. Right as the mob moves in for the kill, our boy Shadow drops into the fray, catching the entire execution squad off guard. Seizing that microsecond of pure panic, he unleashes an absolute hurricane of lethal steel. Suddenly, a rogue killer materializes at his blind spot, aiming for a clean decapitation, but our guy weaves through it by a hair. In a blink, he is swarmed from all sides. Yet their numbers mean nothing against his feral energy, as he butchers his way through the pack, leaving just a single target standing. As he winds up to finish the trash, the battered, vengeance-fueled warrior bursts from the shadows, piercing the final assassin himself. With his ultimate goal achieved, a massive, satisfied grin stretches across his bloody face. But then he completely collapses, dropping dead before our protagonist can even pop his burning question. Peeking out from his cozy little hiding spot, Guillaume creeps forward, casually checking if the coast is clear. Ignored once again, Yoon-sol kneels to inspect the corpse. Taking this golden opportunity, Guillaume drops his friendly act and lunges for a brutal backstab. But you cannot catch a predator slipping. Yoon-sol intercepts the blade flawlessly, leaving the traitor absolutely paralyzed with shock. Guillaume literally cannot process how he got countered. Shoving the backstabber away, Yoon-sol glares at him, completely pissed off that this clown ruined his only shot at finding out what true closure feels like. Guillaume could care less about his existential crisis. His brain is just short-circuiting over how his perfect betrayal got read like a children's book. Smirking coldly, Yoon-sol drops the mic. He knew this snake was plotting from day one. Back in the gloomy underground bunker, his eagle eyes caught the heavy arsenal of concealed blades, stuffed beneath Guillaume's clothes. Plus, the guy walked like an absolute robot, totally weighed down by all that heavy metal. Our boy straight up admits he only let the rat tag along for pure entertainment. He wanted a front row seat to study how scammers operate in the wild. Hearing this destroys Guillaume's ego, making him screech that our guy is just bluffing, because his acting was literally flawless. Going manic, he unloads a storm of projectiles, but Yoon-sol deflects them like it is nothing, humiliating the traitor even further. Cold, undeniable dread finally washes over Guillaume, as he realizes this monster is downloading his every move. In a flash, Yoon-sol blitzes forward, closing the gap instantly, and carving a deep gash into his shoulder. Mocking him, Yoon-sol casually notes that hoarding top-tier gear is totally pointless if you suck at hiding it. Running on pure adrenaline and desperation, Guillaume goes all in, launching a reckless do-or-die suicide charge. He barrels forward, but our protagonist firmly establishes the power gap, ghosting right through his defense and slicing him to ribbons. Standing over the fresh corpse, Yoon-sol secretly admits the clash actually pushed his limits, and that secret stash could have ended him if he had been blind to it. Glancing back at the dead traitor, he notes the hollow, terrified expression frozen on his face, the classic look of a dying coward. But then he remembers the peaceful, totally fulfilled grimace of the vengeance guy, leaving him wondering what kind of mask he will wear when his own timer runs out. After serving up some brutal karma, Yoon-seo refuses to leave empty-handed and snatches his fallen enemy's blade right out of the dirt. Boom, dual wielding unlocked. But while our boy is busy upgrading his arsenal, a mysterious shadow is lurking deep in the surrounding brush. This unseen stalker is locking onto his every single move, taking mental notes on his savage combat style and pure lethal energy. Sure, the kid possesses some crazy raw talent, the Watcher notes. But out here in this hellish wasteland, he desperately needs a massive power-up, or he is absolutely going to get wiped out. Cut to the very next morning, and it is absolute chaos. A whole mob of unhinged trainees goes full predator mode, hunting Unseo down to completely eliminate him from the game. His body is already wrecked, dripping crimson from countless deep slashes. Still, he forces his legs to keep sprinting because this bloodthirsty squad has zero plans of showing mercy. Desperately pushing his speed to the absolute limit to shake them off, he is also... Yunsol's brain is working overtime to cook up an escape route. Meanwhile, way up on a mountain peak, the head instructor and Jin Gak are casually spectating the whole bloodbath. The big boss demands a sitrep. Jin Gak chimes in, reporting that out of the initial 86 test subjects, exactly 41 trainees are still breathing. A twisted grin spreads across the instructor's face. 41 survivors after 3 days of pure hell. That actually exceeds his expectations. He figures this remaining batch holds some serious potential. So what is the next logical step? Cranking up the difficulty to test exactly what they are made of. Back on the ground, Yunsol links his daggers together. The second his attackers swarm him, he violently whips the blades backward, sending one goon flying, and carving out desperately needed breathing room. But reality hits him hard if he stays out here. Getting jumped in an open field is a guaranteed game over. He needs to flip the script and completely alter the battlefield, leveling the playing field to his advantage. Without missing a beat, he bolts straight toward the massive fire rain sect building. What our boy does not know, the head instructor just pinpointed that exact building as the next zone to shut down. Unsol crashes through the entrance purposely, leaving a fresh blood trail to bait his pursuers. The mob tracks the Crimson drops into a claustrophobic hallway, convinced they have him trapped like a rat. Plot twist: Unsol ghosts right behind them. He nearly decapitates the closest target, but the guy barely parries the fatal strike, screaming at his squad that the prey is at their six. The guy smirks, acting tough as he flexes that they are not some low-level NPCs who would fall for a basic stealth play. Blades clash as a brutal brawl breaks out. But Yunsol is already downloading the guy's attack patterns, weaving through every slash like it is nothing. Slipping past a heavy strike, a massive opening presents itself. Unsol does not hesitate for a microsecond. He rips his sword through the air with insane force, completely severing the dude's head from his shoulders. Seeing their buddy get deleted, the rest of the mob loses their minds. They blindly rush him all at once. Bad move. They instantly realize the cramped hallway makes swinging their weapons practically impossible. Yunsol, though, he is entirely in his element. Narrow corridors are exactly where his fighting style turns absolutely lethal. He completely dominates the skirmish, turning the attackers into his personal punching bags. Taking a quick mental snapshot of the chaos, he realizes that as long as he funnels them into one-on-one clashes, he can wipe this entire squad off the map. Panicking that they are getting picked off like sitting ducks, one of the more desperate thugs wildly hurls his chain whip, violently ricocheting it off the stone walls. The lethal coil nearly wraps around Unsol, but our guy backflips out of the kill zone at the very last second. Seeing that they finally flushed Unsol out of the choke point, the surviving thugs scramble toward the exit, only to smash face first into an absolute menace. It is their own squad captain. His eyes are burning with pure rage after catching his crew trying to dip from the battlefield. The goons instantly start sweating, stammering out pathetic excuses about falling back to secure a better tactical position. The captain is not hearing a single word of that lie. With one ruthless sweeping motion of his blade, he decapitates his own men, painting the corridor red. He casually steps over their corpses, trash-talking his fallen subordinates, and complaining about how they were dead weight from the start. Now that the annoying side characters have been dealt with, the stage is set for the real showdown. Unsol locks eyes with the deranged captain. The guy gives Unsol a slow clap for his skills before formally dropping his name, MORTICIAN'S. He demands to know who he is fighting, but Unsol could not care less. Our boy cuts straight to the chase, bluntly asking if this psycho is the shot caller. That massive disrespect completely triggers Wu. He snaps, deciding introductions are pointless since Unsol is leaving this place in a body bag anyway. Wu violently snaps his spiked whip to entangle Unsol's blade. Faster than the eye can track, the unbelievable impact shatters Unsol's sword into metal splinters. Wu instantly starts mocking him, brutally roasting the Fire Rain sect for teaching him a one-trick pony defensive stance. A chilling realization hits Unsol like a truck. This absolute villain has fully deciphered his signature shining mystique art. But the math is not adding up. How on earth did he figure it out? Unsol suspects Wu might be tapped into some deep underground intel network. Spotting his opponent zoning out to strategize, Wu capitalizes on the distraction and launches a lethal strike. Unsol barely sidesteps the deadly swipe, his eyes widening. as Wu's weapon literally pulverizes the stone walls into dust. It hits Yunsol. Fighting this demolition machine in a cramped hallway is pure suicide. He pivots and dashes straight for the spacious main hall. Whipping out his backup blade, he drops into a combat stance, ready for round 2. But an insane shockwave from Wu's attack blasts him backward. Emerging from the shadows, Wu shakes his head openly, complaining that Yunsol is putting up a tragically weak fight. Another vicious flick of his wrist sends the whip soaring. Before Yunsol can even blink, the deadly coils snatch him up, trapping him completely. Wu cackles like a maniac, taunting that it is officially game over. Desperately analyzing the binds, Yunsol figures out he can actually parry the crushing grip, using his shining mystique. But there is one massive flaw: he is critically lacking the raw output to properly repel the kinetic force. The light bulb finally goes off. If he wants to survive this, he needs to ditch the defense and unleash an explosive, pure destruction technique. Wu traps Yunsol in a steel-shredding whip, smirking like the battle is already in the bag. But then the vibe shifts. Yunsol is definitely plotting something crazy, yet Wu brushes it off. He figures the kid is just charging up his shining mystique. That arrogant grin drops into pure, unfiltered panic, though. The second Yunsol violently shatters the trap. A blinding golden energy erupts around him, like a supernova. Turns out he unleashed the legendary lightning and thunder art passed down from Cheyenne. Wu barely blinks before the boy is right in his face. Propelled by absolute raw power, Yunsol slices clean through his opponent in a fraction of a second, leaving a lethal slash in his wake. The pain registers way too late. Wu's entire nervous system shuts down instantly, and he faceplants into the dirt, totally lifeless. With the threat neutralized, the insane backlash of the ultimate move hits Yunsol like a truck, forcing him to hack up dark crimson blood. Sure, the technique hits like a nuke, but he absolutely cannot spam it. His current body just cannot handle that god-tier level of strain. Still, a massive win is a win, even if that clash wasted precious minutes. Knowing the restricted zones are about to shift, he gears up to sprint. Then a spine-chilling, suffocating presence drops heavily right behind his back. He snaps his neck around. A gargantuan killer demon is glaring holes into his soul. Pure, ice-cold terror paralyzes Yunsol, his brain totally rejecting the nightmare in front of him. The horrible truth hits him, the boundaries totally shifted, while he was throwing hands with Wu's squad. His mind races desperately, calculating if he can somehow dip out of this death trap without throwing a single punch. Since he did not actively run into this red zone, he tests the waters, inching his foot backward, while keeping his eyes glued to the monster. The beast stays frozen. Yunsol takes a massive mental sigh of relief, thinking the demon is actually letting him slide. He seizes the microscopic window. He bolts, sprinting right past the colossal threat. But a millisecond before he clears the gap, his primal survival instincts flare up, flashing a horrific premonition of his own decapitation. Yunsol violently twists his torso, dodging the invisible lethal strike by a hair. He practically ruins his pants, realizing he never even tracked the demon's movement. Without those borderline psychic animal instincts, his head would literally be rolling on the floor right now. The kid quickly catches on that deadpan stare is a complete trap. The second he breathes wrong, this thing will shred him. Suddenly, Sawu's old lecture about predators and prey echoes in his head. He recalls how hunting beasts struggle massively to lock onto targets, busting out erratic, zigzagging runs. But the top-tier hunters always score the kill anyway, purely because panic makes the prey's patterns too rhythmic and obvious. Eventually, that rhythm hands the killer the perfect golden opening to strike and feast. Knowing predictability equals death, Yunsol rips a deafening roar. He then unleashes the most chaotic offbeat footwork imaginable to shatter any pattern. He executes the wild strategy flawlessly. His initial explosive juke completely throws off the killer demon, actually earning a flicker of respect from the monster. He baits it with a standard zigzag, and the exact nanosecond the beast commits to intercepting, Yunsol pivots into the totally unhinged wild beast path to ghost through the strikes. Ready to execute his grand escape, his heart stops. The demon is already there. A freezing blade rests right against his jugular. Cold sweat drips down his jaw as the devastating truth hits. He got absolutely outplayed. But then a total plot twist. The monster completely freezes instead of slicing his throat wide open. Yunsol sweeps his eyes across the terrain. He actually managed to step right out of the red zone's borders. Panting hard, he processes the insane encounter. Despite going fully feral, he literally failed to create even a microscopic blind spot. Walking away, a massive reality check hits him regarding the true terrifying peak of the martial arts world. He was just a clueless scrub playing in a tiny puddle. Against real monsters, he is essentially nothing. Reaching a solid, safe spot, he desperately tries to unpack the absolute madness he just survived. The math finally clicks. That demon's combat level is completely on par with the phantom who murdered his grandfather. The ultimate goal is crystal clear now. He has to completely eclipse that demon's power level if he ever wants a shot at real vengeance. Out of nowhere, a super chill voice echoes off his back, claiming he has been hunting him down. He spins around. Some random guy is casually perched on a boulder, dropping heavy lore about Yunsol's secret wild beast path. Yunsol instantly clocks that his personal stats are leaking all over the battlefield. The stranger almost drops his name, then totally pivots, shrugging that dead men do not need introductions. With zero warning, the guy blasts forward like a missile. Yunsol stays completely iced out, effortlessly, swaying to make the lethal strike hit nothing but air. The attacker is genuinely hyped seeing that evasion, praising those unnatural feral reflexes. He openly admits that the kid is skyrocketing straight toward Demon Master status, very soon, and that is exactly why he has to put him in the dirt right now. The assassin viciously shifts his strike angle for a follow-up attack. The guy's trash talk suddenly triggers a crucial memory in Yunsol's brain. Right now, zoning out means catching a blade with his neck, so he instantly snaps back to reality. He parries a heavy strike, but the clash sends this freaky vibrating energy straight up his arm. Dodging a couple more lethal swings, the pieces finally click. Flashback to a gruesome scene from his childhood, he and his granddad examining a dead body. The old man dropped some heavy lore that day, claiming the victim was packed up by the 5 tiger-severing blades of the Hebei Peng clan. The dead give away 0 blood, 0 cuts, but every single bone inside the guy was completely turned to dust. His grandpa broke down the cheat code. This specific style injects raw, destructive chi straight into the enemy, the second their blades cross. Armed with this vintage knowledge, Yunsol smirks and drops the bomb. He calls the guy out, loudly exposing his secret Hebei Peng clan signature, moves to his face. The swordsman's jaw practically hits the floor. He starts tweaking, demanding to know how a random kid clocked his ultimate technique. Here's the scary part. One of the core mechanics of this fighting style is a magnetic ki absorption trick. It acts like a literal black hole, dragging the enemy's weapon completely off course. Once the victim's guard is yanked wide open, the Peng fighter swoops in for an instant fatality. Back in the day, little Yunsol was totally mind-blown by this brutal explanation, asking if the Hebei Peng clan were the undisputed final bosses of the martial arts world. But his granddad dropped a crucial piece of advice. The technique is extremely overpowered, but it is a double-edged sword, because the user has to close the distance, putting themselves right in the danger zone. Armed with that exact weakness, Yunsol decides to completely reverse-engineer this guy's entire strategy. Yunsol aggressively closes the gap, forcing the Peng warrior to brace for impact. Spouting some classic righteous hero nonsense, the guy vows to exterminate all demonic threats before they get the chance to level up. But right as they're about to clash, Yunsol pulls a wildcard move and slams his steel deep into the dirt. The swordsman assumes our boy has completely lost his mind, until Yunsol ghosts right past his lethal strike and suddenly spawns in his blind spot. Bam! A ruthless kick directly to the gut sends the arrogant fighter skidding backward, gasping for air. Yunsol causally strolls back to rip his weapon out of the ground, rocking an icy smirk because his bait worked flawlessly. Still, he isn't getting overly hyped just yet, knowing full well that his kick was basically just a flesh wound. He stays on high alert, perfectly aware that this dude is a seasoned veteran, meaning simple parlor tricks will not secure the ultimate win. But the psychological damage is dealt, and Yunsol immediately channels a golden rule from his advanced combat instructor. Let the enemy strike first, then punish their momentum. Right on cue, the enraged opponent launches a blindingly fast assault. And instead of choking under the pressure, Yunsol totally surrenders to the magnetic pull, surfing the momentum to hijack the guy's rhythm. At the absolute final millisecond, he pivots, sending his blade grazing literally an inch past Peng's skull. The swordsman's whole life flashes before his eyes. As pure terror sets in, this demon kid is actively weaponizing the clan's own gravity pull against them. The clan warrior is in complete denial. His magnetic chi is monstrous enough to literally rip massive boulders through the air from 50 feet away. It is a broken ability that leaves even Grandmaster Swordsman totally helpless, so his ego absolutely shatters at the thought of a teenage rookie effortlessly dancing around it. Desperate to prove a point, he charges up another heavy strike, and this time he cranks the vortex power to the absolute max, completely unaware that he is basically giving Yunsol a massive speed buff. Riding that gravitational slingshot, Yunsol goes in for the kill, but the veteran warrior barely weaves out of the way, because it was a giant trap. Peng completely shuts off the magnetic pull at the last possible second, catching our boy totally off guard. Flexing his veteran status, he loudly brags that he doesn't need fancy gravity powers to pack up a rookie like him. He recklessly charges straight in, with zero magnetic defense, which is exactly the fatal mistake Yunsol was praying for. The second the guy enters the kill zone, Yunsol triggers the Fire Rain Sword's ultimate first form, Shining Mystique, unleashing a devastating slash. Joining the long list of Yunsol's defeated victims, the arrogant swordsman is left absolutely paralyzed by the sheer brilliance of that counterattack. In a massive brainplay, Yunsol actually hard-coded a purely defensive parry into a lethal offensive execution, risking severe backlash to pull it off. Bleeding out, even the elite warrior has to respect the insane combat IQ. it took to modify that move mid-fight. Unsol casually sheathes his blade and turns his back, leaving the defeated guy utterly confused as to why he is still breathing. Without looking back, Unsol coldly states that random bystanders aren't on his hit list, so there is 0 point in taking his life. Dripping with nervous sweat, the spared warrior agrees to literally never cross paths again. But the second Unsol fades into the shadows, an eerie, unknown silhouette suddenly manifests right behind the wounded man. Plot twist: the guy is an actual demon assassin. Feng locks eyes with the executioner, straight up asking if his time is up, and the killer doesn't sugarcoat it, telling Feng his shelf life as a pawn for the Orthodox sect just expired. Feng is totally shook. How did this guy know his true allegiance? The assassin just smirks, mocking Feng for actually thinking he could outsmart the Demon Palace's intelligence network. Without hesitating, the assassin brings his blade down, taking Feng out in one clean strike. Cut to Seo Jinha. He is currently getting jumped by a whole squad of initiates, straight out of the hellish sect. The brawl is pure chaos, and these guys play dirty, hitting Jinha with a lethal dose of poison that instantly wrecks him. His energy drops by 95%, basically leaving him running on fumes. The squad starts taunting him, calling him a walking corpse, who is guaranteed to flatline unless he gets their stash of the antidote, which, spoiler alert, they are absolutely never handing over. Reality hits Jinha hard. Playing the lone wolf was a massive mistake, because this hit squad's teamwork is terrifyingly flawless. But giving up isn't in his DNA. Forcing himself to stay upright, Jinha violently grips his blade with his offhand, ready to crash out if he has to. One of the thugs bursts out laughing openly, mocking Jinha's desperate stance. Sure, the guy is an absolute prodigy, but let's be real. You can't just casually switch to your non-dominant hand mid-deathmatch. Smirking, they tell him to just roll over and die as they rush in for the final kill. Jinha desperately tries to brace for impact, but his luck hits absolute rock bottom. Thwack. Another toxic dart sinks right into his flesh. The timer is officially ticking. Jinha has exactly 10 minutes before his organs shut down without that cure. Knowing he is totally outplayed and out of gas, Jinha finally drops his weapon. He shuts his eyes, bracing for the brutal execution. But then bam! One of the charging thugs instantly collapses dead before hitting the dirt. The rest of the squad freezes, panic setting in, as they realize a new player has entered the chat. While they frantically scan the shadows, Yoon Seol slowly materializes right behind them, radiating absolute killer energy. Moving like a literal ghost, Yoon Seol unleashes a flurry of ultra-precise strikes, dismantling the hit squad before they can even blink. Within seconds, it is a wrap. Yoon Seol is the last man standing, completely unfazed in a literal sea of bodies. Pure dread washes over Jinha as this blood-soaked monster slowly marches toward him. Stumbling back, Jinha begs for his life, desperately claiming he isn't a threat anymore. But Yoon Seol literally acts like Jinha doesn't exist. He strolls past him, crouching down to aggressively loot one of the fresh corpses. Why? Because Yoon Seol is exclusively hunting for that antidote. Snagging the vial, a faint smirk crosses his face. This little item is going to be his ace in the hole for surviving the absolute bloodbath against the hellish Blood Castle elites. He secures the bag and pivots to leave, but Jinha urgently calls out, practically pleading that the venom is tearing through his veins, and he has under 10 minutes to live. Yoon Seol slowly turns back, hitting him with a freezing glare, and flat out states that he is in this tournament to wipe the floor with everybody, and Jinha isn't getting a VIP pass. In fact, Yoon Seol brutally points out that the only reason his head is still attached to his shoulders is because the poison is already doing the heavy lifting. Jinha gulps, knowing the guy is spitting facts. At the end of the day, they are rivals in a savage battle royale. Throwing a total Hail Mary, Jinha pitches an alliance, give him the cure, and he will fight by his side. Yoon Seol tilts his head unimpressed, basically asking, "What's in it for me?" Pushing through the pain, Jinha lays out the facts. There are roughly 20 heavy hitters still breathing in this exam. He warns that these survivors are moving in packed squads, and honestly, no matter how overpowered Yoon Seol thinks he is, getting jumped by 20 elites at once is a death sentence. To sweeten the deal, Jinha swears to drop massive intel on every single squad's fatal blind spots if he just tosses the vial. Plus, he looks Yoon Seol dead in the eye, vowing that if he gets a second chance at life, betrayal is off the table. Yoon Seol pauses silently, scanning Jinha's aura for any signs of cap, and ultimately decides that this poisoned swordsman doesn't have the sneaky vibe of a backstabber. Doubling down on his promise, Jinha desperately pledges to be the ultimate duo, riding with him until the credits roll on this bloodbath, explicitly promising he will never switch sides. Buying the pitch, Yoon Seol finally caves and tosses the tiny canister over. Catching it mid-air, Jinha goes to work immediately, violently dumping the healing powder right onto his rotting wound. But right in the middle of this impromptu first aid, a massive echoing siren blares across the map. Yoon Seol's eyes lock onto the sky, and he barks at Jinha to move his feet right now. Still recovering, Jinha is totally confused. pointing out that they are chilling comfortably inside a designated safe zone. Yoon practically growls at him to wake up and read the room, dropping some brutal logic. 90% of the arena is covered in deadly poison fog, and with the borders shrinking again, sitting in the lone safe spot is literally a death trap. It is a giant neon sign inviting every single surviving psycho right to their front door. Cue the worst timing ever. Before Yoon can even finish his sentence, the bushes rustle, and heavily armed rival squads pour into the clearing, boxing our duo in completely. Realizing they are officially trapped in the endgame circle, Yoon eyes dart around, instantly locking onto one specific guy in the crowd, who just screams final boss energy. The dude is rocking a blood-red headband, staring them down with absolutely zero emotion in his dead eyes. Since this mob is a chaotic mix of rival gangs, one loudmouth instantly shouts out a temporary truce. They need to butcher Yoon and Jinha first, and then they can go back to slaughtering each other. And honestly, it makes perfect sense, because literally every single killer in that circle recognizes the legendary Seo Jinha. Seeing the insane skills these guys are packing, Jinha knows they are trapped in a lethal corner. In a split-second decision, his hand shoots for the small antidote vial his partner slipped him earlier. Pulling off a massive bluff, he chucks the powder straight at the mob, screaming that it is a lethal toxic dust straight from the hellish blood castle. A massive cloud of thick violet dust instantly erupts, swallowing the entire battlefield in an eerie haze. The attackers immediately freak out, covering their faces to avoid inhaling the fake venom. Using the absolute chaos to their advantage, our duo bolts out of there. But the flawless illusion does not last long before one of the goons sniffs out the absolute lie. He violently screams at his crew, totally exposing the fact that the deadly gas is completely harmless. Honestly though, Jinha is just hyped that the little dust bomb worked as an absolutely flawless smokescreen. Unsol meanwhile is already 10 steps ahead, mentally plotting their ultimate survival tactic. Fighting out in the open is basically a death sentence, so he visually scans for a tight choke point, specifically a narrow cavern, to completely bottleneck their enemies. Operating on the exact same wavelength, Jinha reads his partner's mind like an open book. Unsol barks a quick order to follow his lead, knowing the absolute perfect cavern to make their final stand. Turns out he is dragging them straight back to his old sleeping quarters, the ultimate tactical terrain to slaughter their pursuers. Jinha cannot help but respect the sheer big brain energy blown away by how Unsol already has the whole brutal chessboard mapped out. They sprint full speed toward the hideout only for their hopes to get completely crushed by a heavy wall of smoke blocking the entrance. That dark mist, it means the cave is now an officially restricted red zone. The terrifying killer demons have locked down the perimeter, permanently sealing off any possible escape route. Unsol connects the dots instantly. The top brass is watching from the shadows. They deliberately rigged this specific zone to force a gruesome bloodbath for their own sick entertainment. Pure panic washes over Jinha, and he frantically asks how they are supposed to survive this literal nightmare. Unsol keeps his blood ice cold, assuring his partner that those executioners will not make a move unless someone physically steps into the mist. Cornered and forced into an all-out brawl, Unsol realizes that using the lethal guards as a literal wall to protect their blind spots is actually a massive tactical advantage. With zero options left on the table, the duo draws their blades, locking in for the absolute most brutal fight of their lives. The mob of pursuers finally catches up, practically foaming at the mouth with blind rage after getting endlessly jerked around by our guys. Wasting absolutely no time, the entire pack swarms them, completely bloodthirsty and looking for a lightning-fast execution. High above the chaotic dust, the head instructor observes the scene silently, betting that this exact clash will finally crown the true 10 demon masters. A deadly storm of throwing knives zeroes in on Unsol, but he weaves through the steel flawlessly before launching himself straight at the sniper. With one clean brutal strike, he drops the guy in seconds. Meanwhile, Jinha is putting on an absolute clinic, proving to these arrogant rookies why he is entirely out of their league. Out of nowhere, a heavy projectile rips through the air toward Jinha, forcing him to frantically backpedal to avoid getting violently impaled. The sheer kinetic force of that attack crushes their momentum, slamming Jinha and Unsol right back into a desperate back-to-back stance, while the enemy circle tightens. Staring down the literal barrel of a bloodbath, a cold, dark realization washes over Jinha. This is exactly where his story ends. He abruptly murmurs that he has zero regrets knowing he gave this hellhole everything he possessed. Hearing that fatalistic acceptance, that is the exact second Unsol realizes their mindsets are built entirely different. Because if Unsol bites the dust right here, his wandering soul would be consumed by pure, unadulterated agony for failing to avenge his brutally murdered grandfather. That heavy dose of reality strikes him like literal lightning, completely vaporizing any trace of fear from his body as his eyes go dead cold. He is absolutely locked in. Flipping the script from prey to apex predator, he explodes forward. The first two attackers charging him literally do not even see the fatal blade coming. He shreds through their defenses with such horrifying speed that he is already hunting his next victim, before Jinha even registers that his partner has vanished into thin air. His entire combat style shifts, drastically transforming into a lethal blur that effortlessly slices through human flesh like wet paper. The remaining mob goes into absolute hysterics. They have never witnessed this kind of demonic, otherworldly swordplay in their entire miserable lives. Acknowledging that Yunsol is a walking apocalyptic threat, the entire pack shifts their murderous crosshairs straight onto his back. Every single glowing weapon is drawn in his direction. But it is way too late. Yunsol has entered a pure flow state, his primal beast instincts flaring into terrifying overdrive. Flashing back to every devastating strike Sao Wu ever landed, his physical movements suddenly turn violently unpredictable and beautifully chaotic. To the terrified trainees, he is just a ghostly shadow. All they see are their comrades dropping like flies, completely incapable of tracking his terrifying erratic speed. Even the stone-cold head instructor drops his jaw, absolutely floored that a mere rookie is executing elite techniques with the lethal precision of a seasoned warlord. Yunsol is putting on a ruthless masterclass of destruction, until a massive hook comes flying out of a blind spot, only catching his attention a millisecond too late. He barely manages to raise his heavy blade to block, but the sheer kinetic force violently shatters his weapon into tiny pieces, launching him through the air like a broken ragdoll. Jinha watches the brutal trajectory in sheer horror, screaming at the top of his lungs for his fallen partner to get right back up. His vision goes totally blurry from the impact, ears ringing loudly. Shaking off the heavy concussion, the dark reality of his landing spot clicks. He is deeply surrounded by the thick fog. His jaw literally drops as a chilling wave of pure dread washes over his spine. Slowly panning his gaze upward, he meets the dead eyes of a hulking killer demon staring directly into his soul. The blade is literally inches from slicing his head off, when the head instructor suddenly screams a command, leaving everyone completely shook. That killer demon almost snatches Yunsol up, but out of nowhere, Sao Wu teleports behind the monster, pressing a cold blade right against its throat. It is a silent message: this boy lives. Locking eyes with his master for 1/10 second, Yunsol's vision blurs, and then everything fades to black. Meanwhile, the instructor completely loses it, roaring at the top of his lungs for the chief medic to get there immediately. They cannot let this kid die. Jingok tries to step in, arguing that halting the survival test breaks every single rule in their book. But the boss quickly shuts him down, declaring he will personally shoulder whatever backlash comes their way. Honestly, the guy is secretly throwing a massive party in his head, absolutely hyped that he finally unearthed the diamond in the rough he desperately wanted. He holds zero doubts. Yunsol is destined to rise up and claim a throne as one of the 10 legendary demon masters down the line. Later, Elder Hua Wuyong confronts him, demanding to know why he derailed their entire setup. The original blueprint was strictly to handpick 10 elite demon lords, plus 2 absolute prodigies to act as their personal spies. Basically, they only mapped out 12 surviving spots for the rookies. Yet somehow, Yunsol flipped the script, ending the bloodbath with 14 kids still breathing. Despite staring down massive penalties for this stunt, the instructor stares Hua dead in the eye, dropping the mic by saying he is ready to tank any punishment thrown his way. Hua stresses over the massive fallout once the ambassadors from the 10 demonic factions find out. However, the boss brushes off his anxiety, guaranteeing that those top executives will recognize the exact same crazy potential in Yunsol. Fast forward, Yunsol snaps awake inside an unfamiliar, heavily medicated room. His brain clicks instantly. He is chilling in the infirmary where someone patched him up. Scanning his own body, he is completely mind-blown. Every single gash, including the messed up internal trauma, is flawlessly stitched together. The dude is just staggered. He definitely underestimated the insane medical chops of the demonic palace doctors. Pushing himself off the bed, he stumbles into the corridor and immediately bumps into a servant who signals him to follow. They cruise straight into the main plaza, and Yunsol's jaw practically hits the floor when he takes in the insanely majestic architecture. Turning to his guide, he questions their location only to discover they are standing dead in the heart of Hell Island. Everything clicks. No wonder this massive fortress looked so alien. It was totally locked behind the Forbidden Zone. After crashing into a comfortable seat, the attendant offers him some grub. Without missing a beat, our boy orders 2 steaming bowls of noodles. Just a hot second later, the food gets delivered. Why noodles? It hits right in the feels, bringing back core memories of slurping them down with his grandpa. But right as he picks up his chopsticks, Jinha swaggers in, roasting him for hoarding a double portion. Keeping his guard up, Yunsol glares at the guy, straight up asking what his deal is. Jinha pauses, dropping his cocky act, and actually hits him with a genuine thank you. He straight up confesses he would be resting in peace right now, if Yunsol had not clutched up during the massacre. Modest as always, Yunsol tries to dodge the praise, but Jinha breaks it down for him. The twisted game was rigged to only let 12 rookies walk out breathing, because the boss randomly pulled the plug to save Yunsol. Jinha accidentally caught a lifeline too. This drops a massive bomb on Yunsol, and his jaw drops further, learning he was in a coma for literally 4 solid days. The poor guy swore he only took a 24-hour nap. Jinha quickly points out how insanely lucky he is. The legendary doc, totally famous as the mad physician, just happened to be roaming nearby. Spilling the tea on this guy, he holds the crown as the ultimate healer, but completely lost his grip on reality after watching his own girlfriend die from a sick plague. Basically, the man is a walking cheat code. If you still have a pulse, he can drag you straight back from the Grim Reaper. Hearing this flex, Unsao feels majorly privileged to have survived thanks to such an iconic legend. Zero hesitation, Jinha just steals the second bowl of noodles, slurping them down while dropping more lore. He reveals that those psycho killer demons are legit martial arts masters deployed straight from the 10 major demonic factions. Rumor has it these factions are rolling in soon to draft their future heirs. Curious Unsao interrogates Jinha, desperate to know why the boss went rogue to save his skin. Shrugging, Jinha claims he was literally about to ask the exact same question. Seriously, the chief was acting way too thirsty to forcefully crown Unsao as one of the elite demon lords. Jinha bets real money that they share some hidden history, or that Unsao's clan pulled some shady strings in the background. Squashing those rumors instantly, Unsao swears on his life they are total strangers. Finding out the instructor is eating heavy torture for his actions sends Unsao spiraling. Why would a random dude put his own neck on the chopping block to bail out a total nobody? Right as he starts overthinking, a booming noise rattles the entire hall, announcing the grand entrance of the terrifying demonic sect executives. Surviving rookies scramble into formation, sweating bullets as these absolute units flex their suffocating auras, storming the room like they own the place. Kicking things off, Bulsa, the terrifying right-hand man of the necromancer sect, steps up. He locks his terrifying gaze right onto a kid named Yang Moonho, pitching him a spot in the necromancer sect. Yang instantly hesitates. The guy practically grew up swinging a blade, and has never touched a polearm in his entire life. But Bulsa waves off the doubt, straight up telling Yang his raw physical build is hardwired to wield the necromancy spear. The old master doesn't pull punches bluntly, stating that Yang hit a massive ceiling, relying on swordplay, making the spear his absolute ultimate weapon. Letting that harsh truth sink in, Yang shadows Bulsa without another second of hesitation. Once they dip, another heavyweight veteran, Jock Johan, takes center stage. This guy happens to be the vice master of the infamous Hellish Blood Castle. Dropping a massive curveball, Jock publicly summons Jinha to join their demonic ranks, leaving the kid totally shook. Jinha physically cannot process why a heavyweight like Jock Johan is recruiting a recognized blade prodigy into a dark faction famous for churning out lethal poison masters. But Jock drops some cold wisdom, claiming the most terrifying venom on Earth is a ruthless, toxic heart. Turns out right before trial number 3 kicked off, Jinha coldly manipulated a female operative from the castle's own martial division to wipe out the entire competition, and when her mission tanked, he permanently silenced her to bury the evidence. Panic flashes as Jinha desperately jumps on the defensive, swearing she practically volunteered for the bloodbath. But Jock calmly shuts down his panic, making it crystal clear he isn't mad at all. Honestly, the Vice Master deeply respects how far Jinha will go, even stacking bodies just to secure a win. Jock stares him down, ruthlessly pointing out that the kid will never survive the brutal martial underworld, clinging to some honorable swordsman fantasy. With pure psychological warfare, Jock successfully brainwashes Jinha into realizing his true genius lies in toxic warfare, rather than swordplay. Flashing back to Yoon Sol, wielding a blade like an absolute demon despite being a literal rookie, Jinha swallows the bitter pill that his own blade potential might actually be mid. Embracing his dark side, he fully commits to joining the hellish faction, allowing a grinning Jock to escort him out. Suddenly, the absolute apex predator of the demon path, Wi Hyogun, steps up to the plate. This legend commands god-tier respect just by breathing, backed by his unmatched power and his status in the legendary Fire Rain Sword sect. The sheer spiritual weight radiating off him has even Yoon Sol suffocating. The entire room holds its collective breath, totally desperate to see who this titan selects. Shattering all expectations, Y drops Unsol's name, casually demanding his total loyalty. The Supreme Master admits the rookie's hype has reached his ears, leaving him itching to witness that monstrous potential firsthand. But the exact second Y spins on his heel to exit, Yoon Sol pulls the craziest stunt imaginable deadpan, announcing zero interest in joining the elite Fire Rain squad. Genuinely thinking he misheard the kid, Y demands a repeat. His temper violently snaps, absolutely baffled that a nobody just publicly curved a demon master. Explosive murderous intent instantly erupts from his body, violently crushing Yoon Sol to his knees. Yet the kid somehow grits his teeth, stubbornly defending his right to decline. Dripping with venom, Y demands to know exactly which faction he intends to crawl toward instead. Unfazed Unsol coolly name drops the Wandering Beast Pavilion. That answer acts like gasoline on a fire. Seeing that pavilion as absolute bottom-tier garbage, why feels like this rookie is blatantly spitting on the Fire Rain sect's legacy. Ramping up the suffocating gravity, the master continues to pin Yoon-sol against the floorboards, forcing the kid to fully grasp why this monster is crowned the undisputed king of the demon path. But out of nowhere, the crushing weight miraculously vanishes. Glancing up, Yoon-sol spots Sawu effortlessly shielding him from the immeasurable godlike pressure radiating off Wee. This pushes Y's fury straight into overdrive. His massive ego simply cannot process a low-ranking pavilion master daring to block his path. Y's spiritual energy skyrockets visibly, making Sawu sweat as his hand instinctively hovers over his own blade. The entire crowd loses their absolute minds. Nobody can fathom that Sawu is seriously about to draw steel against the supreme overlord of the demonic martial world. Voice dripping with ice, Y warns Sawu not to push his luck just because he happens to be tight with Jin Gak. Catching the vibe, one of the observant vice masters does the math and realizes every single trainee will get vaporized if Y actually swings his sword. Knowing he has to play the ultimate peacekeeper and de-escalate the ticking time bomb, literally half a second before Y unsheathes his weapon, the vice master physically blocks the hilt, pleading with the raging warlord in the most diplomatic, sugar-coated tone humanly possible. Turns out this brave soul is Vice Master Dan Xian, repping the very same Wandering Beast sect. He practically begs Y to let the disrespect slide as a personal favor. Right on cue, every other senior official in the room joins the chorus loudly, urging the Supreme Master to just chill out. Staring daggers for a tense minute, Y finally caves, officially permitting the Wandering Beast crew to claim Yoon-sol as their own. Wasting zero time, Sawu signals the rookie that it is time to immediately ghost, before the warlord's mood violently flips again. Deep down, Yoon-sol felt the Reaper tapping his shoulder, his instincts screaming that Y was a fraction of a second away from executing him, if the elders had not intervened. Once they finally escape, Demon Palace Sawu gives the kid massive props for leveling up his backbone, while Yoon-sol humbly credits all his insane progress to Sawu's brutal mentorship. Fast forward a bit, the duo finally pulls up to the Wandering Beast Pavilion, which shockingly looks exactly like a bustling, vibrant rural town. The rookie's mind is completely blown, having braced himself for a dead silent. The vibe around them is super intense, yet the locals are just chilling, smiling, like absolutely nothing is wrong. Catching that mind-blown look on Yoon-sol's face, Dan drops the facts. He explains their faction doesn't roll like the rest of the martial world, focusing purely on absolute self-reliance instead. Glancing around, Yoon-sol spots a massive red flag. There are literally 0 people his own age in sight, prompting him to ask what the deal is. Without missing a beat, Dan drops a bombshell. Every single rookie either bailed or straight up died from their brutal training methods. Scanning the area, Dan locks eyes on a completely busted rundown cabin. He points to the crumbling mess, declaring it Yoon-sol's new crib. Adding insult to injury, he mentions that if the place needs some major patchwork, the kid has to go hit up Wangul, the local blacksmith, for some gear. With the housing situation sorted, Dan turns to Sawu, signaling it is time for them to bounce. Yoon-sol freezes, totally caught off guard. He desperately asks if the older man is seriously leaving him behind in this crazy village. Dan breaks down the harsh reality. Sawu is merely a secret pavilion master, meaning he absolutely lacked the authority to cross the terrifying sword demon. Because he risked his neck to keep Yoon-sol breathing, he is facing some serious backlash. Hearing this guilt hits Yoon-sol like a massive freight train, but Sawu brushes off the danger, claiming it is just a tiny slap on the wrist. Trying to kill the heavy tension, he gives the kid a solid smack on the back, ordering him to stay locked in and focus while he is out of the picture. Once Sawu finally fades into the distance, Dan shatters another illusion. He tells the boy he is nowhere near being an official Wandering Beast Pavilion disciple. Sure, he might carry the shiny title of a 10-demon master, but that flex holds 0 weight inside their specific territory. The cold hard truth: the Beast Pavilion absolutely refuses to babysit weaklings. Desperate to level up, Yoon-sol demands to know what it actually takes to get strong. Dan gives him a deadpan nod. He reveals their group completely ditches the toxic stiff rules that choke the other factions. There is 0 pressure to pledge eternal loyalty or scream some cult-like oath. The only assignment: master the martial arts and become an absolute menace. Survive that, and he earns his official badge. Dan throws in a twist. Literally everyone in the camp is technically his teacher, but it is entirely up to those masters if they actually want to drop some knowledge on him. Fast forward to the next morning. Yoon-sol is practically dying as he scales a gigantic cliff called the Iron Peak. Dan had given him one mission the previous day. He promised there was a living legend chilling at the summit, ready to bless him with top-tier internal energy techniques. After burning his muscles to a crisp and sweating actual buckets, the kid drags his exhausted body over the mountain's edge. His jaw hits the floor. Waiting for him is this incredibly intimidating monk-looking dude. The bald warrior is radiating such an insane heavy aura it almost blasts Yoon-sol right off the cliff. But swallowing his fear, the kid holds his ground and states his name. He lays out why he climbed all the way up here. The master just tilts his head, asking why he is so greedy when he already possesses a high-level cultivation art. Yunsol looks completely clueless. The monk squints, pointing out the massive waves of true chi literally leaking out of the boy's pores. This guy claims the aura density is so insanely massive, Yunsol must have been hoarding it since literal childhood. Yunsol quickly shuts that rumor down. He explains he has been a working stiff, a mortician his whole life, completely clueless about any martial arts cultivation. Hearing this, our discount Saitama narrows his eyes, pointing out there are only two logical ways this adds up. Either Yunsol is capping out of his mind, or he somehow mastered it in his sleep. Panicking and desperate to clear his name, the kid swears he is telling the truth, basically daring the guy to check his energy flow. Piquing his curiosity, the martial artist bluntly asks if he can just wipe out all of his true chi right here and now. Surprisingly, Yunsol gives him the green light. The bald dude scans the kid's physical core, completely floored when he spots an absolute ocean of pure energy, practically bursting from his veins. But here's the crazy part, it isn't circulating at all. Somehow this kid stockpiled massive amounts of true chi into his lower dantian, without ever learning an active energy art. Refusing to believe this glitch in reality, the bald guy aggressively yanks Yunsol by the collar, getting straight in his face and demanding to know exactly who taught him this cheat code. Totally lost, Yunsol stammers, asking what he even means. Switching tactics, the master interrogates him about his past. Has anyone ever shown him how to meditate or control his breathing? A light bulb goes off in Yunsol's head. He casually mentions that his grandpa actually drilled a specific breathing rhythm into him back in the day. Instantly, the man orders him to demonstrate it on the spot. Yunsol shifts into his stance and starts cycling oxygen. The bald master's jaw practically hits the floor. Why? Because this kid is flawlessly executing a high-tier breathing art while completely standing up. Processing the sheer absurdity of it all, he tells the kid to cut it out, double-checking if it was truly his granddad who handed down this skill. Yunsol nods, dropping the wildest lore his grandpa taught him this, while they were playing dead, hyping it up as the ultimate survival hack for breathing inside a closed coffin. Stunned, the bald master drops a reality bomb. That was not just some morbid breathing exercise. It is actually a top-tier method for secretly hoarding true chi straight into the dantian. Basically, it acts as a flawless passive accumulation cycle. However, without an actual internal energy art, he cannot weaponize the aura locked inside his body. Looking him dead in the eye, the dude reveals that Yunsol is casually walking around with 10 straight years of pure internal energy stacked inside him. Desperate to connect the dots, he asks for the grandpa's identity. Yunsol casually drops the name Bu Jianyang. The second those words drop, Baldy drops a massive bombshell. Only one guy in the entire MURIM rocks that name. We are talking about the undisputed deadliest blade of the demonic path and the ex-vice lord of the demon palace itself. Yunsol's brain practically short-circuits. There is zero chance a legendary powerhouse like that would spend his days burying dead bodies. But the hits keep coming when Baldy points out something totally unhinged. The breathing style Joan Young passed down to Yunsol actually belongs to the Shaolin sect. This completely shatters reality for Yunsol, meaning the moves are straight-up orthodox, sparking a terrifying question about whether his dad was secretly playing for the good guys this whole time. Pure dread spikes through his veins, realizing that if this secret ever leaks, getting stripped of his Demon Master rank is the absolute best-case scenario, while getting zeroed on the spot is pretty much guaranteed. Seeing the kid spiraling, Baldy waves it off and tells him to chill because he fully trusts him. He guarantees the Demon Palace already ran an intense background sweep on him, and since they came up empty, Yunsol is completely in the clear. Now it is time to cash in a favor as Baldy announces he is passing down his personal breathing art to honor a pact he made with the Wandering Beast Pavilion. The monk casually states he genuinely could not care less if Yunsol reps the orthodox or demonic side. But then his aura turns ice cold, making it crystal clear: leak this technique to a single soul, and he will brutally wipe out Yunsol and everyone he cares about. Without blinking, Yunsol fiercely accepts the insane terms. Seeing the kid's unbreakable resolve, the monk finally drops his name, Hiho Gyumong. Hiho kicks things off with a pop quiz asking if Yunsol actually grasps how the orthodox demonic factions cultivate their energy, to which Yunsol draws a total blank. Heyo breaks it down, explaining that the orthodox Murim grinds the old-fashioned way, naturally absorbing energy in perfect sync with the universe, while the demonic path is absolutely unhinged, resorting to any toxic shortcut imaginable to hoard power fast. Sure, the dark side gets an insanely massive power spike right out of the gate, but since those cursed methods literally rip the human body apart, over time the orthodox masters always take the ultimate crown, late game, by wielding flawless true chi. Heyo then drops the ultimate flex, the art he is handing over, completely transcends standard demonic limits. He hypes it up as an absolute god-tier, one-of-a-kind cultivation method. The massive catch: grinding this skill brings soul-crushing agony. He casually admits he literally gnawed his own fingers off to survive the sheer torment while learning it. But whoever tanks that impossible pain unlocks a vessel perfectly fused with infinite energy. Spilling his own tragic lore, Hyo reveals he used to be a high-ranking master of the Azure Dragon Temple, but after being falsely accused of murder, he got tossed into the streets with his chi completely locked. The Wandering Beast Pavilion stepped in to help him reboot his shattered core, which is exactly why he swore to pass on his ultimate cultivation technique, to pay off that massive life debt. Knowing he would break his vow if the boy fails to absorb the teaching, Hyo declares a brutal initiation is up first. He warns Yunsol he is about to violently blast his true chi through all 365 of his acupoints, simultaneously forcing a massive purge to flush his internal pathways and prep his body for the god-tier art. Hyo gives it to him straight. The agony will be reality-breaking, offering him one last out to walk away before it is too late. But Yunsol, radiating pure, stubborn protagonist energy, smirks and tells him to bring it on, fiercely confident he can tank the hit. Hyo violently floods the boy's core with blinding true chi to initiate the purge, but instead the old master witnesses something completely mind-bending. He braces for the kid to start screaming his lungs out from the agonizing hellfire, yet, shockingly, Yunsol sits there perfectly still and totally unfazed. That is when Hyo's jaw practically hits the floor. There is zero foul black sludge oozing from the kid's pores, proving Yunsol's meridians are flawlessly pure without a single drop of toxic karma. Hyped out of his mind, the master screams in absolute victory, declaring Yunsol is absolutely worthy to inherit the technique. Flash forward exactly 6 months, and Yunsol has undergone an insane glow-up that completely redefines his entire look. He has packed on serious muscle, erasing every trace of the fragile, scrawny kid he used to be. To test his progress, Hyo violently launches a massive boulder straight at his head. Instead of dodging or throwing a punch, Yunsol casually flexes his raw aura, and the crushing pressure instantly vaporizes the rock into dust without him lifting a finger. Witnessing this impossible feat, Hyo is utterly speechless, confirming the boy has totally conquered the art. The old master is reeling, completely shook that this menace mastered a lifetime of cultivation in just half a year. During that insanely short grind, Yunsol successfully liquefied and absorbed every ounce of the true chi dormant inside him. With the circulation phase completely crushed, Hyo hypes him up to tackle the next brutal training arc on their agenda. Yunsol effortlessly drops into his cultivation stance, radiating fierce gratitude for the monk who just turned him into a living weapon. Yunsol totally crushed the first stage in record time, but, to him, he still feels like he is moving in slow motion. This breathing technique packs 8 insane tiers, and he is dead set on unlocking the second one before even stepping off this mountain. Fueled by pure grit, he actually shatters the next barrier, leaving Hyul completely speechless. Hyul's jaw practically hits the floor. The kid just triggered the second realm, the absolute purification of muscle and bone. It is a state designed to push the human physique to its maximum potential, but that massive power spike violently overloads the body. Right on cue, the physical agony hits. Crimson spills from his lips as he bites down hard, stubbornly refusing to tap out. Hyul instantly flashes behind him, bracing the kid's trembling back. He barks at Yunsol to empty his mind and lock in on the objective, but Hyul quickly spots a massive problem. Yunsol's physical vessel is tearing apart totally, failing to contain the erupting true energy. At this rate, his internal organs are going to completely shred. Zero hesitation, Hyul decides to burn his own life force to save the boy. Slamming his palm against Yunsol's spine, he pumps his raw vitality straight into the kid's core. Once the violent storm of energy finally settles, Yunsol feels like an absolute powerhouse, practically radiating aura. But the moment he glances back, he catches Hyul, desperately gasping for breath. Panic setting in, Yunsol scrambles over, demanding to know if his master just sacrificed his own true energy. Catching the pure guilt in the kid's eyes, Hyul effortlessly brushes it off. He casually drops the fact that he is permanently bound to the Wandering Beast Pavilion until Yunsol officially graduates anyway. That hits Yunsol right in the feels. He finally realizes that behind that grumpy tough guy exterior beats a seriously golden heart. He might act all cold and ruthless, but the older warrior is genuinely looking out for him. Overwhelmed with immense gratitude, Yunsol swears he will never forget this massive debt. Hyul's response: he coldly orders the kid to erase him from his memory entirely. Yunsol instantly freezes. Those are the exact same haunting words Sawu dropped on him back during the deathmatch. Hyul makes it crystal clear, the only acceptable payback is mastering the breathing technique all the way to the legendary 8th tier, which unlocks the ultimate realm of great origin. Taking a deep grounding breath, Yunsol looks his master dead in the eye and promises to conquer the exact heights that Hyul himself could never reach, since the older warrior capped out at stage 5. And now that Yunsol has safely secured the second stage, Hyul officially kicks him out of the nest. His final advice: it is time to grind the absolute fundamentals of actual combat. He points the rookie toward the treacherous cliffs, bordering the western edge of the pavilion territory. That brutal drop-off is about to become his brand new training ground. Choking back his emotions, Unsol delivers one final, deeply respectful bow. Flash forward exactly 3 months. The Windcloud Squad, an elite absolute powerhouse unit, finally rolls back into the sect. These guys are literally parkouring across the rooftops, flexing their ridiculous agility just to remind everyone who the apex predators are. Their commander Baek-yeon is busy radiating main character energy and showing off his massive aura, at least until Dan steps out to greet him. Peeling off his stealth mask, Baek drops a super stiff formal greeting. Dan just sighs, totally exhausted by the guy's hardcore obsession with protocol. But Baek is not having it. In his eyes, the pavilion's sacred laws are already crumbling, and somebody needs to hold the line. Actually catching Dan right now is a massive win for the squad leader, because he has got a serious bone to pick. Beck straight up demands answers. Why on earth did Dan recruit a kid tied to the 10 Demon Masters when Beck actively voted against that insane gamble? Dan casually drops a bombshell. Unsol actually picked them, completely ghosting an elite offer from the legendary Fire Rain sect. Baek is absolutely stunned. A rising star willingly picking their gritty faction. Dan chuckles, admitting that crazy choice nearly sparked an all-out turf war. Smirking, Dan tells the commander he should be hyping the kid up for his loyalty, but Baek is miles away from throwing a welcome party. Snapping completely, Baek points out that this reckless stunt is exactly why the Fire Rain elites boycotted the Demon Masters entirely. He yells that their faction is already taking heavy heat from the terrifying Demon Palace. Snatching up a wild card like Unsol is just dumping gasoline on a raging inferno. Completely unfazed, Dan flashes a calm smile and drops a harsh truth about their home. The Wandering Beast Pavilion does not care about messy MURIM politics. Their one and only obsession is reaching the absolute pinnacle of combat. Cornered by logic, Baek bitterly backs down. Still, he demands a face-to-face with the rookie, knowing his own rank as a Demon Master is on the chopping block. Cut back to Unsol. He is currently linking up with his next instructor, Go Wool, a legendary ex-thief infamous for his god-tier swift phantom footwork. The old rogue endlessly hypes up his signature move, bragging that every single student who ever attempted to learn it ended up paralyzed for life. Their bodies simply shattered trying to match its insane velocity. Naturally, Go Wool fully expects this new kid to end up in a wheelchair too. But plot twist, Unsol absolutely speedruns the supposedly impossible training, dominating the footwork in barely 30 days. The old thief's brain practically short-circuits, yet underneath the shock, he is beyond hyped to finally secure a worthy heir to his deadly legacy. Mission accomplished. He officially decides to lock up his dojo for good, passing the ultimate torch. He tells his genius student that the rest of the grind is completely solo, prepping him for actual life-or-death combat. The duo watches Unsol tearing through the swift phantom technique. Beck scoffs, betting heavily against the kid, claiming the move is just way too brutal to learn quickly. But a second later, Baek's jaw literally hits the floor. The way Unsol is gliding out there, it is unreal. He practically stutters, asking if this dude has been grinding this single move since the exact day he walked into the pavilion. Dan shakes his head, dropping the bomb that Unsol actually picked up a completely different art first. The terrifying reality hits Baek like a truck. Those wild rumors about this prodigy mastering the Wandering Beast path in barely 2 weeks, they were dead on. Dan nods, spilling the tea that Sa Wu dumped his entire personal stash of spiritual water on the boy. He figures that massive energy boost is what shattered his transcendental nerve so early. Baek waves that off immediately, arguing, there is zero chance that gulping down some magic water equals this level of absolute mastery. Shifting gears, Dan points out he is basically running the show right now. Since the Pavilion Master is locked away in deep meditation, that is when Baek brings up a brewing storm. The 10 demonic sects are severely salty over this whole 10 Demon Masters fiasco. Turns out the entire program was Baek's memo, blindly tossing their precious heirs into a meat grinder. Dan brushes it off like it is just business, but Baek warns him the fallout is massive. The problem? The White Demon Temple leader's golden boy, Kang Muryeon, got permanently packed up by none other than Unsol. Dan could not care less, honestly, chalking it up to a massive skill issue. If you step into a deathmatch, you better be ready to face the Reaper. But Baek drops another bombshell. The White Demon crew are not the only ones wanting Unsol's head on a spike. The Fire Rain Sword sect is absolutely fuming. They are losing their minds over the fact that a total outsider flexed their sacred lightning and thunder art. Y has been screaming for blood, demanding severe consequences. They even scapegoated Xian entirely, stripping him of his rank. Dan is stunned that they already ruined the guy who taught him, yet they are still relentlessly gunning for Unsol. Baek clarifies the trap. They are demanding a trial to prove if this kid even deserves a spot among the elites. If he chokes, they will completely shatter his cultivation and ban him from ever touching a blade again. Right in the middle of this heavy drop, Unsol casually vaults over the ridge, landing flawlessly beside them. Dan gives him a quick nod for the intense grind, introducing their guest. Yunsol hits him with that polite, respectful bow, but Baek is already gearing up to unload all that grim news on him. Dan instantly throws his hands up to block it, wanting to keep the kid out of the dirty politics. But Yunsol slices right through the tension flat out, stating he is ready to face the music, since he is the one who caught those bodies in the first place. Dead silence. It suddenly clicks for the veterans. He heard every single word. Yunsol gives a tiny shrug, apologizing for eavesdropping. Turns out he was tapping into the wandering beast path's chi vibration mind's eye the whole time. Baek's brain straight up short circuits. He practically chokes out a question. Was he seriously scanning their conversation while doing high-speed movement training? Yunsol casually nods, explaining he just rode the sound waves bouncing off the water. Baek is left entirely speechless, while Dan just sighs. At this point, the kid doing impossible things is just a typical Tuesday. Getting over the shock, Baek is honestly hyped they have an absolute monster on their side. He pitches the idea of just letting the kid handle it. Dan thinks he is insane, screaming that sending him to the Demon Palace is a straight-up suicide mission. Baek fires back. He points out the palace top dogs just want to pacify the grieving white demon leader. They do not actually care about taking Yunsol out. That is exactly why the trial is set at the palace. If it were at the temple or the sword sect, it would be a guaranteed bloodbath. Baek lays it out cold. Dodge this summons and the target on their backs will only grow massively. While the two veterans bicker, Yunsol steps up with absolute zero hesitation. He casually announces he is heading out. His logic: the higher-ups are desperate for good public relations. Destroying a rising star would be a terrible look. Plus, he refuses to drag the Wandering Beast Pavilion's name through the mud by running from a scrap. Baek smirks entirely, backing the kid's alpha energy, telling Dan that facing the heat is the only way to get these haters off their necks permanently. Completely cornered, Dan groans, reluctantly giving the green light. But he slaps on one heavy condition. When Yunsol crushes this trial, he better force those salty sects to swear a blood oath to drop the beef forever. The squad locks in the plan, and Yunsol marches straight toward the Demon Palace. Stepping through those massive gates, a heavy wave of nostalgia hits him. The vibe is wildly different from the very first time he ever set foot on these terrifying grounds. A lackey quickly intercepts him, guiding him deep into the intimidating Grand Hall, giving him a heads up that someone way further up the food chain would be taking over his evaluation from here. Yunsol's cold gaze locks onto the towering Grand Hall of the Demon Palace, the absolute nerve center pulling all the strings. Picture this as the demonic underworld's ultimate strategy hub, basically their twisted version of the MURIM Alliance's tactical pavilion. This is his proving ground, the exact spot where he's about to face a brutal trial to justify his worth, and he confidently steps through the massive doors. Inside, he comes face to face with the ultimate boss of the Grand Hall, Baek Junseo, who zeroes in on our boy immediately. Without missing a beat, Junseo hypes up Yunsol's insane aura, admitting the crazy rumors about his power are totally true. Then the Hallmaster drops a heavy question, asking if Yunsol even grasps the toxic beef brewing between the palace and the 10 demonic sects. Completely blindsided, Yunsol has to ask if the Demon Palace and those 10 infamous factions are actually running separate agendas. That question makes Junseo realize the Wandering Beast Pavilion totally kept our protagonist in the dark, so he breaks down the chaotic lore. He explains that the Demon Palace is supposed to be a massive coalition holding the demonic paths together, but honestly, they are far from a unified powerhouse. In fact, they operate more like a shaky alliance wrapped in mutual distrust. Junseo spills the tea that while a sect insider usually runs the show, the previous top boss was a complete outsider, sparking serious bad blood across the factions. The puzzle pieces finally click for Yunsol. This whole setup is just a fragile partnership masking a ton of underlying hatred. Junseo stops sugarcoating it and delivers a massive plot twist regarding the real endgame. The infamous 10 Demon Masters project was never about crowning new heirs for the demonic sects. Nope, it was a ruthless Black Ops program designed to breed ultimate killers, specifically meant to slaughter the orthodox martial masters. Basically, the palace engineered this entire brutal tournament just to assassinate the absolute top-tier leaders of the MURIM Alliance. The sects definitely saw red and tried to reject this suicide mission, but the palace bullied them into sacrificing their elite disciples anyway. But here's the kicker. A bunch of those top-tier prodigies got totally wiped out during the trials, and it's all because Yunsol went absolute goblin mode. Now the palace is looking incredibly weak, so Junseo straight up admits he dragged Yunsol here for an execution, cleverly disguised as an official exam. And when he asks if Yunsol caught onto the trap, our boy coldly confirms he knew all along. Junseo smirks deeply, respecting the fact that Yunsol walked right into the lion's den, fully prepared to throw down. Skipping the pleasantries, Junseo cuts right to the chase, revealing some wild behind-the-scenes politics. Apparently, the White Demon Temple and the Fire Rain sect are trying to play nice by handing Yunsol a literal VIP pass to the 10,000 Demonic Truth Pavilion. It is an insanely massive library packed with ancient secrets, and Junseo tosses him a slick golden plaque to get through the doors. This towering structure holds 3 heavily guarded floors, and this shiny ticket only buys him entry into the ground level. Yeah, it's the absolute lowest tier available, but don't get it twisted. Even that bottom floor is stacked with 25,000 killer martial arts manuals, giving Unsol an absolutely broken advantage. But here is the harsh reality check. They only tossed him this massive perk because they are betting actual money he won't survive the upcoming deathmatch. It is purely a PR stunt to keep their own names clean when he inevitably gets bodybagged. After dropping that massive reality check, Junseo reveals the brutal win conditions survive exactly 5 lethal strikes from an absolute beast of a martial master. And not just any master, a hitman specifically handpicked by the White Demon Temple, making this incredibly personal. Junseo then drops another bombshell. The Savage Head instructor literally torched his own career just to force Unsol into this exact phase. When asked why he would pull such a crazy stunt, the instructor basically told Junseo to grab some popcorn and watch the show. Now Junseo is hyped to see if Unsol can actually deliver on that insane promise, and with the golden pass in hand, our boy hits the lobby. Right on cue, he bumps into none other than his old mentor casually chilling in the palace. Jingak flexes a bit, explaining he actually has some serious heavyweight connections running through the Grand Hall. Turns out his gig on Hell Island was just a cover-up. He was only babysitting the trainees. Spotting the golden VIP tag dangling from Unsol's grip, Jingak instantly clocks that his former student is heading straight to the Truth Pavilion. Once Unsol nods, Jingak shifts into full sensei mode, deciding to drop some critical survival wisdom on his former pupil. He warns him that the martial arts underworld is incredibly toxic, and nobody out here is handing out freebies without expecting blood in return. There is a deadly hidden agenda lurking behind every single smile in this twisted society. Looking him dead in the eye, Jingak tells Unsol he absolutely believes in his ability to flip this death trap into a massive power-up. He leaves him with a wildly cryptic puzzle saying that trees grow from their roots, a major clue wrapped in a slick riddle. Unsol nods, respectfully, taking the heavy advice to heart, as Jingak promises he is totally rooting for his survival. Just moments later, Unsol pulls up to the 10,000 demonic Truth Pavilion, stepping right into the belly of an absolute architectural behemoth. Stepping inside, Unsol instantly clocks that this isn't your average library. His jaw practically hits the floor when he realizes every single book here holds a deadly martial arts manual. But after just a few minutes of wandering the aisles, the harsh truth hits him. This whole setup, it is a total trap. Sure, he is surrounded by top-tier secret techniques, but let us be real, nobody is mastering this stuff in 24 hours. Trying to cram all this knowledge would just burn through his ticking clock. And honestly, that is exactly what his haters are banking on. The Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple are playing psychological warfare, trying to shatter his mental focus before the big day. Refusing to take the bait, our boy takes a deep breath to lock in. Right then, a golden nugget of wisdom from Jingak echoes in his mind. Trees grow from their roots. The metaphor clicks instantly. Knowing exactly what he needs, Unsol sprints through the massive building, scanning the shelves like a madman. His frantic search finally pays off when he spots it. A dusty manual detailing the Wandering Beast reversal technique, straight from his own faction. Hands trembling with hype, he flips open the cover. But what he reads on that first page leaves him absolutely speechless. Fast forward, the grace period wraps up, and Judgment Day is finally here. Unsol struts into the massive exam arena, where a high-ranking elder immediately calls him out. Meet Gok Gyobong, the head honcho overseeing this whole trial. And he is not alone. Yo Un-sung, from the Fire Rain Sword Sect, is chilling in the VIP seats. Backing our boy up is Nyung Gok, representing the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Rounding out the audience is Go Gun Pyung, from the notorious White Demon Temple. Supervisor Gok drops the bomb. The temple has requested a front-row seat to test Unseol's raw potential. They are officially evaluating if he has what it takes to be one of the 10 demon masters. Gok then glares at the rival sect representatives. He lays down the ultimate ultimatum. If the kid actually clears this impossible hurdle, will they finally drop their petty beef? Both reps smirk and swear on it. If Unseol walks out of this arena alive, all past sins are wiped clean. With the terms locked in, Gok screams for the trial to begin. The heavy hitter himself. He smirks at Unsol, laying out the win condition. Survive or block just 5 of his attacks, and the victory is his. Behind the scenes, Go's bosses literally ordered a hit on the kid. But surprisingly, the elite warrior actually feels a shred of pity for the crumbling Wandering Beast faction. So, he compromises. Instead of a body bag, he is just going to slice off both of Unsol's arms. Zero prep time proves this dude is an absolute monster. The killing blow zeroes in on his chest, but pure instinct kicks in. Unsol launches himself backward, narrowly escaping the first strike by a hair, not even giving him a second to breathe. Go chains into his next combo. Suddenly, Unsol is staring down a brutal web of branching slashes. The kid goes into full parkour mode, vaulting across the battlefield, just to avoid getting shredded. Watching him weave Go is secretly mind-blown that the rookie read his pattern. Those overpowered wild beast senses are hard carrying right now. But Go just laughs, warning the kid that the warm-up is officially over. Out of nowhere, strike number 3 drops. It looks like a literal monsoon of blades suffocating the entire stage in an unavoidable death trap. With illusions mixing with real steel, Unseol's brain scrambles. Instead of parrying, he realizes his only play is to dodge every single drop of that lethal rain. Pushing his body past its limits, he blurs into overdrive. The technique slams into the arena floor, triggering a massive eardrum-shattering explosion. The smoke clears, and Go's eyes widen in pure disbelief. Unseol is still on his feet, rocking nothing more than a tiny scratch on his face. How did he survive? He pulled out the swift phantom technique, ghosting through the wreckage like an absolute boss. Still, reality hits our hero hard. If Go had followed up through the smoke, it would be game over. Meanwhile, the attacker is visibly tilted. Missing his target completely is messing with his pride. At this rate, his whole plan to chop off the kid's arms is looking like a massive flop. Dropping the handicap, Go locks in. The atmosphere turns freezing cold as he charges up his ultimate nuke, the White Demon Heart Strike. The arena vanishes into a blinding flash of white light. Stuck in the void, a wave of sheer terror washes over Unseol as his confidence shatters. His instincts are screaming red alert. If he tanks this hit, they will be scraping him off the pavement. Time slows down to a crawl. In that split second, a flashback hits him. He remembers cracking open that forbidden manual back in the library. He recalls being completely stunned. The author had literally dedicated the entire intro just to absolutely roast the Wandering Beast Pavilion. But past all the toxic trash talk, the core chapters served up pure gold, exposing every single fatal flaw hidden in their martial arts style. It was a genius filter. Only a true thick-skinned disciple of the path would push past the insults to unlock the actual secrets. The biggest takeaway: stop fighting like a mindless brute. A real master merges pure instinct with high IQ tactical thinking. More importantly, it taught him the ultimate cheat code, manually overclocking his 5 senses during a life-or-death crisis. Staring death right in the face, he triggers the technique. At the very last microsecond, his perception skyrockets, slowing the world around him. Bending his body at an impossible angle, he slips right past the White Demon Heart Strike. The entire stadium goes dead, silent jaws practically hitting the floor. Go is paralyzed with shock. That specific finisher has literally folded seasoned masters from his own temple, yet this kid just sidestepped it like a casual stroll. The terrifying reality finally sinks in for Go. No wonder the top-tier sects put a bounty on his head. If Unseol lives to see tomorrow, he is going to completely dismantle their entire empire. That's the final straw for Go. Realizing Unseol is way too dangerous to keep around, he decides to pull out his ultimate trump card. For his 5th and final strike, he unleashes the White Demon Divine Serpent, fully intending to wipe Unseol off the map. Unseol barely dodges the initial blast, but the attack literally has a mind of its own. It locks onto him like a heat-seeking missile, absolutely dead set on sending him straight to the grave. The White Demon Divine Serpent isn't just a flashy move. It's a cursed homing strike that refuses to dissipate until it tastes fresh blood. Smirking Go is entirely convinced he's about to watch the kid lose his head. Knowing dodging is totally out of the question. Unseol instantly taps into the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. He fiercely thrusts his hand forward just as the brutal strike connects, triggering a massive, blinding, golden shockwave. But even that isn't enough to completely neutralize the monster of an attack. After agonizingly holding the line for a few heavy seconds, the ethereal serpent violently shatters his sheer kinetic impact, launches Unseol soaring backward across the arena. But his pride won't let him eat dirt. He violently skids to a halt on his knees, and even with his right arm hanging completely useless, the guy still grips his blade tightly with his left hand. Slowly lifting his gaze, his eyes burn with a downright terrifying murderous intent, proving he's nowhere near done swinging. Go is genuinely stunned, but deep down, a dark chill creeps down his spine. He knows if Unseol walks away today, he's going to be a massive thorn in their side later. So, he coldly decides to bend the rules and finish the kid off right here. But just as he channels his chi for a sneak attack, Gak the rep from the Wandering Beast Pavilion tightly grips his wrist bluntly, reminding him that his 5 allotted strikes are officially up. Go aggressively yanks his arm away, throwing a tantrum over the disrespect. But Gak completely matches his energy, glaring back, and icily warning him that the Demon Palace won't honor a single promise they made if Go decides to play dirty right now. Suddenly, the Fire Rain sect representative stubbornly chimes in, crying foul because Unseol dared to use their clan's signature lightning move to survive. He heavily pushes to completely void the test results, bringing up their original petty grudge. Gak instantly shuts the guy down, telling him he's treading on really thin ice, especially since they literally never laid down any ground rules banning the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. He even rubs salt in the wound by claiming Elder Cheon would be hyping Unsol up for flawlessly executing the move. The Fire Rain dude is practically fuming, taking this as a massive slap to his sect's honor. But Gak casually flips the script, explaining that Go just dropped the ultimate nuke from the White Demon Arts, and Unsol miraculously tanked it, relying purely on the unrivaled Thunder technique. Gak slickly points out that mathematically speaking, this absolutely proves the Fire Rain technique heavily outclasses the White Demon Temple's martial arts. With that one genius sentence, Gak perfectly pits the two factions against each other. After all, the Fire Rain sect has an ego way too huge to pass up an excuse to flex on their rivals as the superior clan. Trapped by their own pride, the Fire Rain guys are forced to completely drop the argument. Left with zero options, Go publicly announces that the deal still stands. He loudly declares that Unsol has officially snatched back his throne as one of the 10 demon masters, and he's formally cleared to wield the sword again. With the drama settled, Gak turns around to congratulate our boy on surviving. Rushing in to catch him, Gak realizes the absolute madman had actually passed out, while remaining completely upright on his feet. A while later, Unsol blinks awake in yet another unfamiliar bougie room. He instantly panics, totally confused as to why his life feels like a bizarre VIP hotel tour. Then the intense memories of the deadly trial flood back, making him sweat over whether he actually passed or not. Imagining the brutal consequences of failing, he figures stressing out won't help right now. To calm his nerves, he sits up and starts cycling his inner chi. Almost instantly, he notices an insane stockpile of pure energy flowing through his veins, flashing him back to Hyo, claiming he had a solid 10 years worth of raw chi locked away inside technique, the legendary realm that basically makes him immune to both fire and water, respectfully informing him that he's resting inside the Demon Gathering Pavilion. In simple terms, he's chilling in the personal mansion of the Elder Pavilion. Cold sweat immediately drips down his face, fully aware of the sheer terrifying aura surrounding this place. The master here goes by the title of Blood Demon, making him one of the legendary 3 demons and 3 venerables, who basically rule the peak of the martial arts world. The maid bows, introducing herself as Jin Seol, and nervously drops the bomb that the elder personally requested his presence in the inner chamber. Hearing this, Unseol's anxiety violently spikes through the roof in her hall, just waiting for him to show up. Trekking toward the main building, they stroll through a wildly aesthetic courtyard garden that leaves Unseol completely starstruck. He finally steps inside the grand hall to meet the old man face to face, who greets him by calmly sliding over a fresh cup of tea. Unseol respectfully bows to the elder, genuinely hyped by the old man's praise for surviving the brutal trials of the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple. Taking a slow sip of his drink, the geezer suddenly quizzes him on the brew's flavor profile. Keeping it real, Unseol admits, he is completely clueless about high-end tea culture, so he can't really give a fancy critique. Intrigued, the elder leans in to dig deeper into Unseol's background. Unseol practically freezes, absolutely shook that he's sharing a table with the literal monster, who single-handedly painted the MURIM red with the blood of countless Orthodox masters. Our boy realizes he totally would have mistaken this guy for a regular grandpa if he hadn't known the dark lore. Once he wraps up his formal respects, Jack Bong smirks, noting the kid completely defies the rumors. Despite starting his martial arts journey super late in the game, his physical foundation is insanely pliable. Plus his internal chi is shockingly solid. The infamous demon then admits he dragged him into his private room, rather than the infirmary, because they needed an off-the-record chat. He breaks it down, explaining that while the pavilion technically flies the demonic banner, their entire setup is totally rogue compared to the rest of the faction. Jack Bong then lays out the master plan. Fast forward 3 years, and he'll This is an absolute cheat code of an offer. The Dark Heaven Squad is the peak of the demonic hierarchy, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Heaven Slaying and Soul Annihilation units. The Elder guarantees that the exact second he wears that squad's uniform, his path toward dominating the upper ranks of the sect is completely locked in. Smirking, Jack Bong waits for the kid's reaction to this golden ticket, but without missing a single beat, Unseol flat out turns him down, leaving the legendary master baffled and demanding an explanation. Keeping his cool, the rookie points out that mastering the chaotic techniques of the Wandering Beast Pavilion literally requires putting his life on the line, and securing a safety net right now would totally kill his survival instincts. Hearing this fearless response, Jack Bong erupts into manic laughter, absolutely obsessed with the kid's hardcore mindset. He praises Unseol, declaring that this is the exact hunger a true martial artist needs to survive. But just from chuckling, the old monster leaks an aura so suffocatingly heavy that Unseol's internal organs feel like they're being crushed. Toning it down, Jack Bong promises he'll be keeping close tabs on him, insanely hyped to witness his evolution over the next 3 years. Protagonist instantly takes the hint that it's time to get out of there. Bowing respectfully for the opportunity, Unseol exits the room. The second the door shut, flashing a wicked grin, The elder commands his subordinate to monitor the kid's every move, eager to see which faction he eventually aligns with. Once he puts enough distance between himself and that room, Yoon Seol gasps for air, struck by the terrifying reality that he was inches away from death, just by breathing the same air as that monster. He knows for a fact he would have been instantly wiped out if he had slipped up and said the wrong thing during their chat. Still shaking off the residual dread of surviving that encounter, a random passerby nudges his shoulder to check on him. That's the exact moment his brain finally registers that his feet have already carried him straight into the bustling city limits. He takes a long look at the vibrant streets, soaking in a vibe of normalcy he hasn't felt in forever. It hits him hard just how deeply he's plunged into a brutal underworld he never imagined surviving. But his chill moment shatters when his instincts scream that he's being tracked, pushing him to immediately hunt for steel. Stepping into a local armory, he asks the merchant for a cheap throwaway blade meant strictly for training. The shopkeeper lazily gestures toward a pile of discounted gear, dumped in the corner, letting him take his pick. Grabbing the most balanced sword in the trash pile, Yoon Seol deliberately hikes out to a deserted wasteland beyond the city walls. Knowing there's finally zero collateral damage to worry about, he loudly invites his stalkers to step out of the shadows. Right on cue, a whole squad of masked hitmen drops from the tree line like literal ninjas. Giving the kid props for his insane radar, the ambush team tightens their circle, while the lead assassin coldly announces their mission is to wipe him off the map before his training arc even finishes. Radiating absolute main character energy, Yoon Seol deadpans that he has zero clue who they are, and genuinely doesn't want blood on his hands today, offering them one chance to walk away. The hitmen scoff at his warning, flexing that he's the only one leaving in a body bag. Realizing these guys are totally locked in on dying, Yoon Seol decides to communicate in the universal language of violence. He slowly draws his rusty blade, but the execution squad is fully convinced this rookie is nothing but easy prey. Shifting into a lethal battle formation, the Shadow Warriors box him in for the kill. Yoon Seol clocks their ambush instantly, but he keeps his cool. In a split second, these guys swarm him from every angle, aiming right for his throat. Unfazed, he parries their opening blitz like it is absolutely nothing. His eyes dart around, instantly reading their rhythm, relentless, perfectly timed strikes with zero breathing room. It is dead obvious these hitters have been running together for years. Their synergy is practically flawless. But flawlessly synchronized or not, those raw, primal beast instincts of his pick up on a fatal flaw. He spots the cracks in their armor. Their individual power levels are completely mismatched. Smirking, he knows exactly how to rip this squad apart, and he does not waste a single second. In a blur of motion, he drops their first guy flat, leaving the rest of the hit squad absolutely paralyzed. They cannot wrap their heads around how this kid instantly broke their rhythm. Turns out these goons are repping the Wudang sect, acting high and mighty like their sacred formations are totally unbreakable. Panic sets in as they start questioning if the Demon Palace is secretly training rookies to shred orthodox tactics. Desperate to claw back control, the squad leader barks out a command, demanding his crew pivot into their third tactical array. But here's the crazy part. Yoon Seol does not care about their fancy choreography. He is purely hunting the weakest links. They rush him again, and boom, he instantly slices through two more targets like butter. The remaining assassins are officially freaking out, completely mind-blown that this guy possesses such god-tier blade skills. Yoon Seol coldly shuts down their theories, dropping a massive truth bomb. He is not even using formal martial arts. He stares them down, declaring that this is just pure, unadulterated survival instinct. He mocks their downfall, pointing out that their arrogant overconfidence dug their graves. While they were playing dress-up, he was out here scrapping tooth and nail just to see tomorrow. The hit squad leader physically trembles, his entire reality shattering as his apex predator ego crumbles. Yoon Seol flipped the script on them. The grim reality sets in. They are just fresh meat, and he is the monster hunting them down. Recognizing that they just kicked a literal hornet's nest, one terrified lackey begs his boss to pull back and regroup. That completely triggers the leader, who ruthlessly executes his own guy on the spot, spitting that cowards deserve zero mercy. Yoon Seol tilts his head, genuinely asking this fanatic if keeping his fragile pride is seriously worth dying over. The leader fiercely fires back, boasting that orthodox warriors do not swing their blades for selfish greed like demonic scum. He preaches about righteous duty, which absolutely triggers Yoon Seol. Flashes of his father lying cold in a casket flood his mind, sending him into a terrifying bloodthirsty rage. He moves like a ghost. The leader only processes what happened after Yoon Seol's blade is already buried deep in his chest. Collapsing into the dirt, the dying leader gasps out that Yoon Seol has truly transformed into a hellish monster. He spits venomous curses, promising eternal torment in the afterlife. Yoon Seol literally could not care less, glaring down at the corpses rotting at his feet. Alive and standing, he takes a breath, utterly baffled that the bloodshed followed him all the way out of Hell Island. It hits him hard. This brutal cutthroat reality is his permanent home now, and there is absolutely no turning back. But he does not flinch. If slaughtering his way to the top is the entry fee for ultimate revenge, he is ready to pay it in blood. Right on cue, a fancy carriage rolls up to the bloodbath, and Baek steps out, grinning like he just won the lottery at the sight of the carnage. Yoon-sol is visibly stunned, trying to compute how the old man pinpointed his exact location. Baek just gives him an approving shoulder pat, casually brushing off the tracking job like child's play. He strolls over to a landmine. Wasting no time, he orders an immediate fallback to the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Once they are safely, Dan acknowledges how insane the trial was, and Yoon-seol drops a casual bomb he actually got patched up at the dropping, since scoring a one-on-one with that specific top-tier boss is basically unheard of. Suddenly, everything clicks for Dan. It perfectly explains why those hardcore rival sects backed down and accepted the trial results without throwing a tantrum. Yoon-seol blinks. Dan breaks it down for him. The entire demonic palace operates on a strict power triad, consisting of the Palace Master, the Elder Pavilion, and the 10 demonic sects. They effectively split total dominance 3 ways. Baek chimes in, hyping up the Elder Pavilion's terrifying influence, since it is literally a stacked roster of retired god-tier martial legends from the previous era. On top of that, their big boss, Jokbung, has been quietly assembling a lethal shadow army. Dan claps Yoon-seol on the back, emphasizing that absolutely crushing the trial is the only reason a titan like Bung summoned him. The sheer gravity of the situation finally hits Yoon-seol. Pivoting, Dan asks if there are any other crazy updates from the mission. Baek instantly intercepts, dropping the heavy news about the brutal assassination attempt. Hearing this, Dan totally loses his mind, vibrating with pure rage that some nameless thugs dared to put hits out on his star pupil. Baek steps in, warning Dan that, looking at their combat gear, these guys scream General Strategist's Black Ops. He instantly predicts they belong to the Autumn Wind, or the Flying Cloud crew. Dan clocks their entire vibe. These assassins are setting up the General Strategist to take the massive fall if the operation crashes and burns. Honestly, Dan is absolutely disgusted that they are hunting down a literal kid who barely just stepped foot into the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Stepping in, Bach explains that targeting Yoon-seol actually makes sense, considering the wild rumors hyping him up as a generational prodigy. Because these shadowy factions view the boy as an apocalyptic threat in the making, their master plan is to spawn kill him before his stats max out. Despite the insane danger Dan feels, this brutal crucible will forge the kid into an absolute monster. Suddenly, Yoon-seol steps up, locking eyes with Dan to drop a bold request. The boy reveals he knows all about the founding Divine Squad, the elite executioners who slaughter anyone threatening the pavilion's territory, and boldly demands to join their ranks to level up through blood-soaked real-world combat. Baek practically chokes on his own spit, hearing this madness, knowing that specific unit is packed with the most unhinged psychopaths in the organization. Sweating bullets, Baek warns him that their Captain Joan is an absolute menace with a notoriously lethal temper. He reveals she literally executes her own rookies if she deems them too weak, masking her murders as entrance exams. Without missing a beat, Yoon-seol shrugs it off, stating that if he ends up dead, it just proves his skill issue. He actively demands to play on hardcore mode, craving the deadliest environments to force his own evolution at lightning speed. The kid insists on getting front row seats to actual life-or-death brawls between top-tier masters. Baek, sensing the icy, unbreakable confidence radiating from the boy, Dan decides to bet everything on him. With the hit squad gearing up for a raid on Wind Thunder Valley, Dan declares it the ultimate nightmare trial run for their new temporary recruit. Baek continues to yell and backs off. Realizing Dan is stubbornly locked in on his choice, Baek groans, accepting the terrible job of breaking the news to Joanne. Cut to the Thousand Success Inn, where Baek sits down with the infamous captain to drop the absolute bomb about her new teenage recruit. Her jaw hits the floor, and she instantly snarls a rejection, claiming she runs a hit squad, not a glorified daycare center. Trying to maintain control, Baek reminds the furious captain that this is a direct mandate from upper management, prompting Joanne to stand up fully prepared to march out and scream in Dan's face. But before she can storm off, Baek slams down the ultimate flex, the Heavenly Wolf plaque. Recognizing the supreme authority of the Vice Pavilion Master, the air freezes, and a defeated Joanne punches the wooden table in pure rage. Trying to cool her down, Baek runs through the kid's crazy resume, hyping up how the prodigy survived the lethal blood-chilling trials of the Fire Rain Sword Sect and White Demon Temple. Despite the heavy praise, Joan rolls, her eyes convinced the bosses have completely lost their minds. A wicked smile creeps up. She agrees to drag him along purely to put him through hell, fully intending to expose him as a fraud who doesn't belong in the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Shifting focus to their actual raid on Wind Thunder Valley. This target is a cult of heretics heavily obsessed with extreme body hacking and brutal physical enhancements. To fuel their dark experiments, they run a massive underground trafficking ring, making them public enemy number 1 across both the righteous and dark factions. So why haven't they been wiped off the map? Simple, their hideout is an impenetrable, naturally defended fortress gifted by the terrain itself. That insane geographical cheat code is exactly why the deadliest assassins in the pavilion are sweating bullets over this operation. Still, orders are orders, but the moment they pull up to the canyon gorge, Joan realizes the intel didn't do this nightmare justice. A scout frantically points out the massive howling winds tearing through the chasm, making any attempt to cross the bridge utterly suicidal. Worse yet, heavily armed snipers lock down the opposite side. If they catch even a single glimpse of intruders, they'll sever the ropes and plunge the team into the abyss. Joanne's brain short-circuits, staring down an impossible stealth raid while simultaneously playing bodyguard for a teenager. Pushed to the brink, she glares at her vice captain Jae-woon, demanding a miracle, and the stoic fighter simply nods. Casually sliding, throwing daggers from his belt, he flashes a complex hand sign before launching the steel like a guided missile straight across the howling chasm. Threading an impossible needle, the blade slips silently through a tiny ventilation shaft, instantly deleting the hidden lookout inside the guardhouse. Unsol's jaw practically unhinges. To an amateur, it looked like a lucky trick shot, but the kid immediately recognizes the legendary body blade union, an insanely high-level technique he studied back at the Fire Rain sword sect. Instantly, he knows Jae-woon is an absolute beast in combat. The squad whispers, asking if the target is down. The vice captain gives a cold nod but mutters that he needs to scout the perimeter before making a push. Convinced this bridge is rigged to blow, and absolutely refusing to let her squad become cannon fodder, Jeon makes a ruthless call. She decides to use Yunsol as the ultimate crash test dummy. She orders him to take point, and wild enough, he just nods and steps up. The second his boots hit the planks, a monstrous gale nearly rips him into the abyss. Staying upright is practically impossible. Unsol instantly locks in, channeling his absorption technique to magnetically glue his soles to the swaying wood. This absolute flex leaves Jae-woon and the crew totally mind-blown. Jeon, though, she rolls her eyes entirely, refusing to give this kid a single ounce of credit. Then a metallic click echoes through the gorge. The death trap is live. A hidden turret across the chasm erupts, spitting a lethal volley of steel directly at our boy. Ice in his veins, Unsol rockets into the sky. But dodging once is not enough, so he defies pure gravity, physically stomping on his own leg mid-flight to launch himself even higher. Jae-woon's jaw drops straight to the floor. Unsol just busted out a legendary Qinggong move, literally stepping on thin air. Nobody in a million years expected him to pull out literal ninja mechanics to weave through a kill zone. But the turret is relentless, locking on for a second unavoidable barrage. The squad collectively holds their breath, certain he is completely cooked. Right as the steel is about to pierce his chest, he triggers Swift Phantom and blurs into a literal shadow. He teleports to the far edge and sticks the landing like an absolute boss, leaving everyone speechless. Sprinting past the two guards, Jae-woon packed up earlier, Unsol frantically scans the dusty outpost for the control panel. Spotting the rusty mechanism, he slams the heavy iron lever down without a second thought, killing the crossfire instantly. Stepping back to the cliffside, he calmly flags down the squad, letting them know the coast is crystal clear. Jae-woon and Jeon are absolutely paralyzed. 1 micromillimeter of error with that dash would have literally exploded his leg bones. For the very first time, Jeon finds herself staring at him internally, screaming just who the heck is this guy? Breaching the valley gates, the crew pushes deeper through a winding stone corridor. Jae-woon slaps Unsol on the back, massively hyping up his insane agility. Unsol humbly takes the win, confirming he learned that crazy footwork straight from Master Go. Jeon immediately crashes the party, snapping that it was pure luck and nothing special. Jae-woon just sighs, whispering to Unsol to ignore her salty attitude. Plot twist though, she is secretly rattled to her core by how flawlessly he danced through literal death, yet her ego refuses to take the loss. In her mind, this kid is still a massive liability. She is absolutely desperate to expose him as a fraud. Minutes later, they hit a dead end at a massive lake, and Jeon just throws herself into the freezing water with zero context. Unsol stands there completely baffled, turning to a random squad mate for some desperate answers. The guy blinks, realizing their newest recruit completely missed the pre-mission briefing. He breaks it down: this subterranean lake is the only hidden bypass into Wind Thunder Valley. They literally have to swim blindly through a pitch-black underwater cave system to reach the target. The massive catch: this water is packed with lethal frost energy. You have to constantly burn your internal aura for a solid 15 minutes just to stop your organs from becoming solid ice. One slip in concentration and you turn into a human popsicle, sinking straight to the abyss. The squad mate basically gives Unsol a pass to sit this one out, warning him that generating that much body heat underwater is practically impossible for someone his age. Diving in now would just be a high-speed ticket to the afterlife, but Unsol just smirks and cuts him off. He is not backing down from a little cold water. After all, he did not tag along just to ride the bench while the main squad does all the heavy lifting. Inhaling sharply, he plunges headfirst into the freezing depths. Below the surface, jagged frost crystals float everywhere, instantly proving the guy was not exaggerating about the lethal temperature. But wait, something is seriously weird. Ahead of him, the elite squad is visibly fighting for their lives against the crippling sub-zero magic. Meanwhile, Unsol has not sparked a single drop of internal aura, yet he feels as cozy as if he were in a hot tub. The realization hits him like a freight train. This total immunity, it is all because he recently ascended to the legendary realm of absolute fire and water invulnerability. He completely slept on this passive buff when he first got it, but man, is it coming in super clutch right now. Unbothered, Unsol rockets deeper into the frozen abyss. Stepping out from the other side, our boy Unsol catches the entire crew planted on the ground, desperately cycling their energy to recover. Meanwhile, Unsol, totally unfazed. He strolls up to them like he's on a Sunday walk, absolutely dropping their jaws. Their brains are totally glitching, trying to process how this kid survived the gauntlet, without breaking a single drop of sweat. Even Jian is low-key losing her mind. She realizes he doesn't need to regulate his energy at all, because his internal core is insanely rock solid. It finally clicks in her head. Lord Dan definitely tossed this rookie into their ranks for a massive hidden reason. But honestly, she is absolutely itching to see what kind of monster Unsol truly is, especially since the actual nightmare is about to kick off. Soon as the squad catches their breath, Jian barks the order to move out. She hypes up her crew, pointing out that their main prey is literally staring them down, and it is time to flex the absolute terrifying dominance of the founding Divine Squad. The team instantly feeds off her energy, and seconds later, pure, unadulterated chaos erupts on the battlefield. These enemies are completely unhinged, charging and shirtless like absolute psychos, with pitch-black veins bulging all over their twisted skin, giving off massive horror movie vibes. One of these freaks launches himself straight at Unsol, dead set on disarming him, but our guy doesn't flinch. He counters brutally, slicing a deep gash right across the mutant's chest. The monster shrieks out, yet instantly snaps right back into a combat stance with a deeply unsettling psycho grin. Roaring in pure rage, the freak throws a massive haymaker, forcing Unsol to cleanly weave out of the blast zone. We soon learn these twisted goons are infamous as the power-seizing demons, literally walking science experiments pumped full of forbidden combat drugs and nasty physical mods. Their pain receptors are practically deleted, meaning they will just relentlessly swarm you no matter how badly you mangle their flesh. Seeing this sheer madness leaves our rookie seriously scratching his head, wondering how on earth you drop a target that literally refuses to die. Jian instantly catches him, hesitating in the middle of the bloodbath, and barks at him to fall all the way back, because he is acting like dead weight. Choosing to play it smart, Unsol listens to his captain, and from the backlines he finally witnesses the absolute cold-blooded savagery she unleashes on the front line. It suddenly hits him like a truck. The whole point of this deployment was for him to study actual master-level combat under lethal pressure. Flipping a mental switch, he commits to becoming an absolute sponge, hyper-analyzing every single movement his veteran teammates make, aiming to perfectly copy and paste their skills into his own arsenal. Right, while he is locked in on his study session, a demon blitzes him out of nowhere. But Unsol just smoothly evades the strike. He realizes playing strictly defense is the ultimate big brain move right now, keeping the current battlefield chemistry totally intact. With his crew utterly dominating the skirmish, he treats the massacre like a front-row masterclass, soaking in the sheer brilliance of the elite squad. He watches in pure awe as Jian effortlessly lops off demon heads with her massive greatsword, completely blown away by the fact she is one-shotting these tanks. Yet his brain cannot compute her mechanics, mainly because her style is wildly out of the box for a typical heavy blade user. To his eyes, she is moving like a rapier master, throwing out lightning-fast thrusts and brutal twisting motions. A few seconds later, it dawns on him that his whole theory is totally busted, so he dials in his focus, desperate to crack her combat code. Perfectly on cue, another psycho rushes him, and channeling the exact vibe he just ripped from his captain, Unsol fatally carves the mutant up just like she would. The truth finally smacks him. This isn't some textbook kata you memorize, but a fluid instinct that demands you constantly morph your stance to punish the enemy's exact angle. Basically, once a warrior hits absolute god-tier mastery with their weapon, they completely shatter the rules of fixed forms. In that legendary zone, you organically birth a flawless, lethal strike, entirely off how you grip your steel. He figures out that his badass leader isn't cycling through named attacks at all. She is literally just scanning the freaks for microscopic openings and instantly exploiting them for the kill. Fired up, Unsol gears up to test drive this brand new revelation, and it takes zero time for Jian to catch the rookie totally biting her flow. Shutting his eyes, our boy draws a slow, icy breath, letting the demon charge right into his kill box. The second the beast crosses the line, he explodes into a flurry of steel tearing into the monster's flesh. However, reality quickly checks him. His current limit is a measly 2-strike combo. Nowhere near the absolute blender of 9 phantom strikes his captain can dish out. Witnessing this from afar, Jian practically stops breathing, totally shell-shocked that this kid essentially decoded a hyper-advanced duel/execution technique purely by casually observing her. Her mind is genuinely blown, considering it took her 2 entire years of grueling hell to master that exact same concept. Meanwhile, our genius protagonist accepts his hardware can only handle a 2-piece combo right now, but the underlying software is fully downloaded. Having completely plundered his captain's secret sauce, he quickly pivots his radar straight onto Jae-woon's combat zone. The dagger specialist instantly feels the rookie's intense analytical gaze locking onto him. Knowing how the kid just dissected the captain, Jae-woon stays insanely cocky, betting his life savings the rookie can't steal his specific kit, simply because his combat style is worlds apart from the captain's raw beast path foundation. The guy is practically grinning, 100% sure his secrets are safe. He slings throwing daggers for a living, and there is absolutely zero chance a swordsman is jacking his ranged physics from a quick stare down. Wanting to put on a flashy clinic, Jae-woon engages a whole pack of monsters, clinically turning them into absolute mincemeat, purely to flex on the kid and prove his phantom-like arts are way out of a rookie's league, but out of absolutely nowhere. Bro whips around only to catch Unsol absolutely wrecking enemies by flawlessly mirroring his exact fighting style. But instead of rocking flying daggers in his offhand, our guy is gripping a literal wooden sword. Turns out this dual-wielding mind technique is completely broken, letting a fighter pop off entirely different martial arts with each hand. Jae-woon is left completely stunned. Literally anyone else would have hyper-fixated on the flashy flying daggers, but Unsol did not box himself in by copying the weapons. Instead, he basically X-rayed Jae-woon's entire martial arts foundation. Meanwhile, Unsol is low-key frustrated. He cannot max out the skill's true potential because that raw, explosive power just is not hitting right. He quickly realizes that speedrunning this specific technique is completely off the table. Honestly, if he had not grinded through those archive scrolls earlier, pulling off even this bootleg version would have been impossible. Having already cleared out the squad leader and her second-in-command Unsol shifts his radar to fresh prey. He observes the guy for a split second, immediately clocking how a super basic slash is generating an insane amount of destructive force. Just spectating is not going to unlock this secret. Unsol knows he has to take a wildly different approach to crack the code. Bro casually strolls over to a fresh corpse and starts inspecting it, leaving the squad member completely baffled by this bizarre mid-fight side quest. Seconds later, a wicked smirk creeps across Unsol's face. He just snagged the exact puzzle piece he was looking for. Out of nowhere, an enemy drops in from his blind spot, totally convinced Unsol is a free kill, while distracted. Massive mistake. Without even looking, Unsol shoves his blade straight through the guy's skull, effortlessly dicing him up like absolute butter. The secret: right at the moment of impact, that fighter was injecting his blade with pure true chi to max out the damage multiplier. With that mystery permanently solved, Unsol decides his combat observation phase is officially over. Right on cue, the enemy squad leader makes a hyper-dramatic entrance, loudly swearing, to wipe Joan and her entire crew off the map. The boss chucks a gnarly purple orb that bursts into toxic gas, instantly crippling several squad members who catch the nasty splash damage. But Joan is absolutely not having it. She goes full throttle, slicing straight through the toxic cloud as she blitzes the boss. Her relentless combo lands heavy strikes on his body, forcing the guy on the defensive as he desperately throws up his hands to guard. Out of her peripheral vision, Joan catches Unsol, still analyzing her every move, literally recording her since the brawl kicked off. Internally, she had been gatekeeping his talent. Since he was basically a rookie, her pride outright refused to admit how insane his growth actually was. But the denial phase ends right here. Flashing a genuine smile, she finally surrenders to the fact that Unsol is an absolute prodigy. Catching her mid-fight smile, the enemy boss completely loses his cool. The sheer disrespect of her grinning during a life-or-death deathmatch pushes him right over the edge. Raging, he lobs an even deadlier poison strike, but Joan casually swats it out of the air, shredding the toxic blast before it even gets within range. Her blade connects directly with his palm, injecting a devastating shockwave of energy straight up his arm. The kinetic surge is so intensely brutal it literally liquefies his internal organs, dropping him completely dead on the spot. Brushing it off, Jun orders her crew to sweep up the remaining trash mobs, having already secured the main boss kill for herself. Fast forward 1 week back at the pavilion, and Unsol is having a massive reality check. He realizes he has been speedrunning complex martial arts, while completely ignoring the bare-bone basics. He is well aware that he just leveled up, unlocking a brand new tier in his cultivation journey. But before pushing toward the next stage, he wants to build a rock-solid foundation, so he hikes straight up the mountain to consult Master Huel. Huel's face lights up seeing the kid, instantly hyping him up over all the crazy rumors floating around about his recent combat flexes. Always the humble one, Unsol totally deflects the praise, giving his master 100% of the credit for his wild success. When Huel casually asks if he came up here to study cultivation theory, Unsol's jaw drops. the old master literally read his mind. Huel explains that skipping the tutorial means hitting a progression wall is totally inevitable, though he admits he did not expect the kid to hit it this early in the game. Beaming like an absolute proud dad, Huel scans Unsol's internal system and is completely floored. The boy is packing over 60 years worth of raw energy. He drops a massive lore bomb. All that pure true chi Unsol hoarded since childhood has fully mutated into ultra-rare antipolar true chi, all thanks to awakening his dormant energy vessels. Seeing Unsol super thirsty for martial arts knowledge, Huel decides to finally break down the power scaling system. He kicks things off by explaining that the peak realm sits comfortably just one tier above a first-rate fighter. It is basically the stage where a warrior's physical stats and internal mana pool are completely maxed out. Breaking past that brutal ceiling and mastering your fighting style to absolute perfection lands you straight into the supreme peak territory. But the true endgame, that legendary status, is known as the ultimate divine realm. Hit that god-tier rank, and you gain absolute mastery over mind and body, completely snapping the normal chains of internal energy limits, where the human body completely maxes out. Unsol presses him, asking if there's a tier beyond that ceiling, and Heo just nods. He drops a bombshell, hitting the absolute summit of martial arts. Pure, undisputed perfection is dubbed the Infinite Realm. Word on the street, only two absolute legends have ever cracked this level, the MURIM Alliance leader and the Demon Palace Master. Unsol's mind is totally blown. The same two heavyweights running the entire MURIM are literally sitting at the absolute apex of human power. Heo breaks down the hierarchy. Right below the big two sit the 3 demons and 3 venerables, followed by the 4 divines and 7 kings. Basically, every single one of these titans is chilling in the infinite realm. Hearing this reality check hits Unsol hard. He's got a massively long way to go. But Heo isn't finished. He reveals the ultimate untouchable tier sitting at the very top, the divine intent realm. We're talking god-level status here, where a fighter literally merges with the cosmos and syncs up with the will of the heavens. It's basically a myth 0 confirmed players have ever made it. Heo brings Unsol back to Earth, warning him that aiming for that right now is just a pipe dream, because right now our boy is barely scratching the surface of the peak realm. He explains that by unlocking stage 3 of the reverse polarity cultivation technique, Unsol can finally manifest true chi as a physical shield. Once he grinds his way to stage 4 and masters that aura, he'll officially step into the supreme peak realm. Hitting level 5 unlocks the crazy ability to physically weaponize his internal energy. But the real insanity starts after that. Crack stage 6, and his inner power will run on an infinite self-sustaining loop. Push through to stage 7, and he completely shatters mortal physical limits. Heo drops the final piece of lore at the ultimate 8th stage. He'll hijack the raw forces of nature itself, gaining the authority to bend all living things to his will. Unsol's brain is officially frying from the info dump. Heo chuckles, admitting he's mostly guessing at that point. His own run capped out near the tail end of stage 5. Still, seeing that fire and curiosity in Unsol's eyes tells Heo everything he needs to know. The kid is finally primed to dive headfirst into the chaotic Jianghu. Unsol flinches, stunned that the old man saw right through him. Heo just smirks, saying it wasn't exactly a tough puzzle to crack. Why else would he be asking about god-tier power ceilings? Unsol nods, admitting he finally realized that throwing down in life-or-death street fights is the ultimate cheat code to leveling up fast. Plus, logically roaming the brutal underworld makes way more sense if he ever wants to track down the absolute psycho who murdered his dad. Rotting away inside the demon palace won't give him answers. Knowing the kid is venturing into the wild, Heo points him straight to his next quest objective. He desperately needs intel, and the blacksmith Wang is the guy to see. Wang is sitting on an absolute goldmine of secrets. Unsol dips into a deep bow of respect while Heo leaves him with a chilling warning to watch his back out there. The Jianghu doesn't forgive mistakes. Flashing a confident grin, Unsol tells his mentor to stay safe before cutting straight to the next scene. We jump to the smoky heat of the forge as Unsol pulls up on Wang. The blacksmith casually tosses a thick journal his way, leaving Unsol questioning what he just caught. Wang coolly states it holds exactly what the kid is hunting for. Flipping the cover, Unsol's jaw practically hits the floor when he registers the contents. It's a complete cheat sheet detailing the entire political landscape of the Jianghu, breaking down every single sect's hidden tactics and clan traits. There's deep dive surveillance on the most legendary heavy hitters alongside hyper-specific dossiers on all 10 of the infamous demon masters. Unsol is completely shell-shocked. The sheer volume of classified data packed into these pages is way above the pay grade of some random guy banging hammers on anvils. It begs the massive question, who the hell is Wang really? The blacksmith brushes off the suspicion, promising that surviving the streets will be a breeze, as long as Unsol memorizes this playbook. His only strict rule: torch the book the second he commits it to memory. Sensing he just stumbled onto a major MVP for his revenge quest, Unsol seizes the moment to drop a highly specific question, prompting the two to finally sit down and talk business. Wang is visibly thrown off guard. when Yunsol asks about a wild, grotesque technique, manipulating one's own bones and muscle fibers at will, specifically to execute a flawless upward slash that severs a moving target's dual wrists, all while lacing the blade with a disgusting, flesh-rotting venom. Throw in the fact that this assassin is packing concealed weapons, and even the veteran Wang is genuinely impressed by the sheer toxicity of the setup. A fighter with elite-tier sword skills stooping to use cheap poisons and hidden darts is virtually unheard of. Wang leans in, dropping a massive plot twist. He theorizes this shadowy killer is actually a deep-cover operative, masking their true combat style to avoid being tracked. The realization hits Unseol like a truck. If Wang's theory holds up, it flips the whole script. The Phantom, who killed his dad, absolutely isn't a warrior from the demonic path. Wang doubles down on the theory. The culprit specifically hijacked demonic-style gimmicks to throw everyone off their scent, creating the perfect alibi to mask their true origin. The puzzle pieces violently snap into place in Yunsol's brain. He doesn't just need to watch his back around villains. The so-called righteous orthodox martial artists are officially suspects too. If the killer intentionally planted fake demonic red flags, how in the world is Yunsol supposed to hunt down a ghost before the panic can fully set in? Wang slides in with a high-stakes proposal. After hashing out the gritty details off-screen, a determined Yunsol marches straight up to Dan's office, ready to drop the hammer and announce he's finally stepping out into the brutal Jianghu. Dan is completely blindsided by the news. Dan throws a questioning look, wondering aloud if surviving the intense madness of the founding Divine Squad wasn't enough action for one lifetime. But Yunsol instantly shuts that down, telling his superior that while running with the elite squad offered some solid lessons, playing it safe behind walls won't cut it. He craves raw, unfiltered combat scenarios to truly awaken his hidden martial arts potential. Dan nods, totally getting the kid's burning ambition. Yet he firmly states he cannot just open the gates and let him roam free, especially while holding the heavy title of Vice Master. Dan lays down the law, explaining that stepping foot into the ruthless Kangho requires strict clearance, meaning he has to officially lock in with a designated faction and secure direct approval from its commander. Unbothered Yunsol smirks and confirms he already did his homework, and his ultimate target is none other than the notorious Salvation Squad. That name drops like a bomb, making Dan's eyes widen in pure shock before his temper completely explodes. Demanding to know who leaked that highly classified intel, calmly Yunsol throws Wang under the bus, revealing the guy actually pitched the dark idea as the perfect next step for his training. Word on the street is this shadowy unit handles the absolute grittiest underworld contracts, ranging from silent assassinations to high-profile kidnappings and hijacking priceless resources. They are the invisible blade executing Black Ops missions the Demon Palace completely denies existing, and Wang hyped it up as the ultimate fast track to unlocking the exact god-tier power our boy is chasing. Plus, Yunsol's mental gears are turning, realizing that diving into this lethal syndicate is a massive cheat code for tracking down his target's killer, considering they constantly operate in the dead center of extreme life-or-death crossfires. Our protagonist is fully locked in, convinced that thriving in that lethal environment is the ultimate forge for leveling up his raw strength. But Dan is having none of it, screaming that he will never greenlight this suicide mission. Yet Yunsol meets his gaze without blinking, proving he knows exactly how deep this darkness goes. He breaks it down, stating that the second he signs that blood pact, his entire existence gets wiped off the map, turning every single mission into a literal coin flip with death. Dan fiercely nods, backing up those brutal facts, warning him that this unit operates as the absolute garbage disposal for the Demon Palace's filthiest secrets, and pledging loyalty to them requires burning away your past ties and your name leaving you utterly stranded in the shadows without a single soul coming to your rescue. The veteran spells it out, emphasizing that this meat grinder is strictly designed for desperate sinners, drowning in unpayable sins, or reckless lunatics chasing a massive payday. With a heavy sigh, Dan stares him down, demanding if he actually wants this hell, to which Yunsol coldly nods, declaring his obsession with speedrunning his power progression. He drops a hard truth on his superior, stating that if diving into the Salvation Squad's abyss is the path to supreme dominance, he is completely prepared to embrace the slaughter. He even claps back with a reality check, reminding Dan that the elite 10 demon masters are nothing but weaponized pawns bred to exterminate the orthodox heavyweights, so throwing himself into the crossfire perfectly aligns with his original dark destiny. Defeated by logic, Dan admits the kid has a point, acknowledging how the ruthless demonic sects constantly exploit their prime fighters, like disposable batteries just to fuel their sinister ambitions. However, his tone softens passionately, explaining that the Wandering Beast Pavilion breaks that toxic cycle, as he genuinely envisions turning the young warrior into true family within their ranks. The raw honesty catches our main guy completely off guard, making it click that his boss actually gives a damn and is terrified of watching him die. Shaking off the emotional beat, Yoon-sol softly admits he feels the profound sentiment, but flips the script claiming that exact fatherly warmth is exactly why he needs to plunge into the underworld. Confused, Dan raises an eyebrow demanding a translation for that twisted logic, and the young prodigy delivers a cold observation, pointing out that everyone chilling inside the pavilion's safe walls are completely stagnating because comfort and bubble-wrapped protection breed weakness. That mic drop realization hits Dan like a truck, forcing him to accept that this reckless kid's mindset is absolutely bulletproof. Throwing in the towel, Dan stamps the approval but slaps on a strict 1-year expiration date on this wild run. Grinning Yoon-sol drops a massive thank you for the green light, while his mentor firmly adds that an emergency exit is always open the second he secures that vital power spike he is obsessing over, offering a guaranteed ticket back to their sanctuary. But before sending him into the wolves' den, Dan drops one final massive reality check. Since he is officially stepping out into the Kangho, pointing out that walking around with his current iconic look is literally begging for a giant target on his back. Let's be real. The kid's face is basically front-page news among the elite 10 demon masters, making a hardcore disguise his only real survival tactic out there. Cut to later, our boy hits the chaotic city streets, rocking a low-profile bamboo hat, totally unrecognizable from his usual lethal aesthetic. Navigating the dense crowds, his sharp senses immediately catch random pedestrians gossiping about his legendary alter ego, proving Dan was 100% right to hit him with that extreme makeover before letting him step outside the gates. Shortly after ducking through the alleys, he pulls up to the highly secretive Salvation Squad outpost, secretly planted right in the heart of Uiyang. He taps the call bell, but after getting totally ghosted by the silence, he just pushes his way inside the joint. The entire operation is brilliantly fronting as a dusty old library, making his brain short-circuit for a second as he questions if he somehow stumbled into the wrong neighborhood. Out of nowhere, a weathered old-timer appears from the shadows, giving him a suspicious glare while asking for his business. Playing it cool, Yoon-sol smoothly drops the secret code, claiming he wants to pawn off a rare novel, sliding a very specific text across the counter to the elder. The geezer intensely inspects the cover, zeroing in on a tiny smudge of ink tucked in the corner that perfectly shapes into their underground syndicate's crest, sitting right there in plain sight. Instantly shifting into their coded protocol, the old man scoffs, trying to play hardball by trashing the book's worn-out condition, warning him it won't fetch a single dime. Without missing a beat, Yoon-sol counters, stating he is strictly looking to swap it for a different title. Catching the vibe, the elder summons his right-hand guy Ma-woon, ordering him to escort their new guest into the restricted section. Slapping on a harmless fake nice expression, Ma-woon politely gestures for our disguised protagonist to follow him into the abyss. The second that heavy inner door clicks shut, Ma-woon's entire vibe flips. His friendly mask shatters, replaced by bone-chilling intensity. He stares Yoon-sol down, dropping his real title. He is the mastermind running these underground briefings. The Salvation Squad does not do names, only numbers. Ma-woon slaps Yoon-sol with his new identity, Agent 18. He tosses a thick, leather-bound ledger across the table. Pick your poison, Ma-woon says, promising to break down the gritty details once a target is locked in. Flipping through the dusty pages, Yoon-sol spots a bounty worth 500 Naiyang stamped with a weird third-issue warning. Yoon-sol raises an eyebrow, asking what the catch is. Ma-woon smirks, explaining it is a death counter how many times this exact hit has been posted. Translation: 3 separate assassins took the job, and all 3 ended up in body bags, leaving the contract gathering dust. That body count forced the agency to reboot the bounty 3 times. But as Yoon-sol scans the fine print, he realizes something. This gig is just petty theft and spreading fake rumors. Hard pass. It does not scratch that itch for real combat. Our boy is craving absolute carnage, a life-or-death brawl to push his limits and level him up. He keeps skimming the deadly roster. He needs maximum danger. Suddenly his eyes lock onto a blood-red contract. Issued 9 separate times. 9 dead assassins. The payout: a massive 3,000 silver niang. The target: the notorious Vice Hall, master of the blood, Yin Cult's soul-sparing hall. Catching Yoon-sol staring way too long at the suicide run, Ma-woon shuts it down fast. He tells the rookie to stop dreaming. He breaks down the squad's hierarchy, explaining that these hits are ranked across 4 brutal difficulty tiers. Tier 1 is basically a guaranteed death sentence. Anything from Tier 2 and above is exclusively handled by hardcore veterans, killers who have survived this hellish squad for over 3 years. Tier 1, that is VIP territory, for the absolute deadliest freaks they have. It is strictly top-tier talent only. Ma-woon flat out tells Yoon-sol to stay in his lane, capping him at a Tier 2 max. He warns that this Vice Master is no joke, a legendary martial arts monster who has been dominating the underworld for ages. This guy eats professional killers for breakfast, rendering standard assassination tactics completely useless. Ma-woon tries to inject some fear into the rookie, spitting that the 3,000 Naiyang bounty is blood money for a reason. But Yoon-sol does not flinch. He deadpans that this is exactly the mission he wants. Mawun's jaw practically hits the floor, but Yunsol just shrugs off the warning, making it crystal clear that he does not give a single damn about the insane risk. See that secret intel book? Wang slipped him earlier, broke down this exact target's weaknesses. To Yunsol, it is not a suicide mission. It is a puzzle waiting to be solved. Mawun just sighs, writing him off as another cocky kid sprinting straight into an early grave. It is a massive letdown for Mawun, who actually thought the kid had potential, but since the rookie absolutely will not back down, Mawun begrudgingly leads him down into the shadows to gear up for the slaughter. They step into the squad's hidden armory, a vault stacked with exotic lethal hardware. Yet Mawun purposely bypasses the good stuff, tossing Yunsol a pile of heavily rusted beat-up junk. Yunsol instantly reads the room. He is getting literal garbage because the bosses refuse to waste premium steel on a walking corpse. Honestly, Yunsol could not care less. He is just going to let his blade do the talking and shove his success right in their faces. The second Yunsol leaves the hideout, the old agency veteran corners Mawun, pressing for the debrief. Mawun shakes his head, revealing the insane kid locked in a Tier 2 suicide run right out of the gate. He basically writes Yunsol's obituary right there, and even the grizzled old man gasps when he hears the target is the legendary Shik Jung. It is the ultimate graveyard mission that slaughtered their best elites. Mawun admits that is exactly why he handed the rookie rusted garbage, protecting the guild's budget from a guaranteed dead man. But the old man strokes his beard, a spark of intrigue in his eyes. He senses a massive plot twist coming. Meanwhile, let us talk about the target, the Blood Yin sect. These psychos are holed up on Blood Yin Island. They are a deeply twisted, demonic faction branching off from the infamous blood cult. But here is the catch: even a heavily fortified, isolated island still needs its basic supply drops, and that logistical loophole is exactly where our boy strikes. Going full undercover as a ragged dock worker, Yunsol sneaks onto the supply ship bound for the Demon Island. He is keeping his head down, hauling heavy crates, when suddenly a paranoid martial artist yanks him back, pressing cold steel right against his throat. Yunsol instantly locks up in sheer panic. It is a brutal pop quiz. The guard is trigger-happy, trying to provoke a hidden martial arts reflex from the helpless kid. But Yunsol plays the terrified civilian role flawlessly, totally tricking the guard into dropping his suspicion. The thug finally slides his blade away, and casually yells for a medic to patch up the mess he just made. A ship's doctor sprints over to inspect the dripping wound. Thread and needle pierce skin as Yunsol grits his teeth, acting out the agonizing pain. After a tense few minutes, the doc ties off the stitch. He wipes the blood away, noting that, while it looked nasty, the blade missed any vital arteries, just a surface scratch that needed sewing up. The doc promises he will be fully healed in about 7 days. The second Yunsol is alone in the dark cabin. He exhales a massive, shaky breath. That was way too close. The only reason his killer instincts did not kick in and blow his cover, he was actively suppressing them, using his secret body transformation art. Armed with the combat skills he picked up from the Vice Squad leader, and that insane aura hiding technique Wang taught him, Yunsol is locked and loaded. He knows the clock is ticking. With the ship setting sail at dawn, taking out Sokjong tonight isn't just an option, it's a must. Once darkness falls, he throws on his tactical gear and slips straight into the heart of the Blood Yin cult's territory. Bounding across the rooftops like an absolute ghost, he melts perfectly into the pitch-black shadows. It doesn't take long before he locks onto his target. Down below, Sok is busy chatting someone up. Just feeling the insane waves of internal energy rolling off this guy confirms the rumors. The dude is an absolute monster, but something feels incredibly off. Siak is flexing his aura way too casually for a guy who has dodged 9 assassination attempts already. Smelling a major trap, Yunsol dials his guard up to 100 and starts shadowing him from above. Trailing his prey down a dead quiet corridor, the heavy scent of herbs hits Yunsol's nose. They are heading straight for the pharmacy wing. That subterranean room is basically a giant acoustic vault. Zero sound gets out, making it the ultimate slaughterhouse to end Sok's life. He keeps tailing the boss, but suddenly Sok pauses in his tracks. Did he just catch a whiff of our hero? Yunsol instantly glues himself to a nearby wall, holding his breath. When the guy keeps walking without looking back, our boy thinks he is in the clear. The target steps right into the dark vault, and Yunsol slides in right after him, zero hesitation. Siak's back is completely exposed. It's a rookie mistake, and Yunsol grips his blade ready to one-shot this guy and go home. But right as he shifts his weight to launch forward click, a floor tile sinks under his boot. Trap triggered. Anticipating a barrage of deadly spikes, he backflips away, only to watch a handful of loose coins clatter loudly across the stone. It's a cheap alarm system, but his cover is totally blown. Sok slowly turns around, an arrogant smirk plastered on his face. He brutally roasts Yunsol, calling him just another basic scrub in a long line of failed hitmen. He laughs, pointing out how painfully unoriginal it is that every single assassin tries to gank him in this exact same herbal vault. That's when the shadows shift and Yunsol spots the massive clay jars lining the back wall. They aren't holding medicine, they are overflowing with severed human heads. Drawing his blade with a twisted grin, Sok casually announces that Yunsol's skull is about to become the newest piece in his sick collection. Catching the shock in our hero's eyes, the villain happily explains that the dead guys in those jars use the exact same stealth strat. They would always sneak aboard the docking vessels and try to jump him down here in the basement. That is literally why he rigged the fake floorboards in the first place. And like clockwork, every single bozo falls for it. The pieces instantly snap together in Yunsol's mind. The Salvation Squad has a massive communication issue. Because everything is so incredibly classified, agents never share intel with each other. They have basically been running face first into a meat grinder on repeat. Sizing him up, Seok chuckles and mentions how fresh-faced and inexperienced his new victim looks. Feeling completely unchallenged, he tosses his premium sword to the dirt. Instead, he snatches a basic low-tier blade right off the weapon rack. Provoking our boy to make the first move, he swears he is going to chop off his arms and legs just to enjoy the screaming. It hits Yunsol hard. The whole silent stealth mission is officially dead in the water, but honestly, a straight-up life-or-death brawl is exactly what his blood is craving right now. Exploding forward, he swings hard and steel violently smashes against steel. The heavy impact instantly catches Sok off guard. He shoves Yunsol away, openly impressed by the kid's raw power. He admits that the boy's key reserve is totally cracked. Plus, the way Yunsol handles his weapon completely breaks the mold of standard hitman training. Finding this new challenge highly entertaining, the villain lunges back in, unleashing the deadly black serpent blade art. Yunsol narrows his eyes, scanning the incoming strike. The guy's speed is insane, sure, but his swing path looks basic and totally predictable. Thinking a simple parry will do the trick, he holds his ground. A split second later, a massive gash rips right across his torso. He staggers back, brain completely fried. He was absolutely certain he blocked that swing, but Sok just bursts out laughing at his confusion. The psycho gloats that his signature strike is practically unblockable. Yunsol barely manages to deflect the follow-up, completely exposing his own defense in the process. But instead of finishing him off, the enemy keeps missing his vital organs. It clicks, this twisted freak is just playing with his food. Realizing he isn't going to be instantly deleted, Yunsol shifts into a hyper-aggressive gear. He needs to decode this insane sword style fast. Rushing in, he unloads a flurry of vicious swipes. Sok weaves through every single one like it's a dance, and immediately launches a savage counter-combo. By pure reflex, Yunsol ducks out of the way. Still, his mind is blown. The trajectory of that blade literally curved mid-air like it defied physics. The light bulb finally goes off. Seok is spamming phantom strikes to mess with his vision. To beat this, Yunsol prepares a massive gamble. He shuts his eyes completely tight. Seeing this, the villain immediately realizes his optical illusions have been busted. Still, Sok thinks fighting blind is a one-way ticket to the grave. Little does he know, our boy is tapping straight into his wild beast path instincts. This hidden skill basically gives him radar vision. When Sok dives in for the kill, he is left absolutely shocked, as Yunsol flawlessly sidesteps every single deadly swing. Total panic short-circuits Sok's brain. He completely loses his cool and starts swinging wild, but Unseol is not sweating it. He locks into the wild beast path, perfectly parrying every frantic strike, until Seok literally has to backpedal. But there is no escaping. Unseol closes the gap instantly, using the swift phantom technique, catching his opponent totally off guard. Truth is, Seok already dug his own grave with two massive slip-ups. Strike 1 dragging the fight out. He gave our boy way too much time to download his attack patterns. Strike 2 massive disrespect. Benching his main weapon because he thought an assassin would be easy work. Now, dread washes over Sok's face, as Unseol delivers a crushing blow that literally snaps his blade in half. Panicking, Seok detonates a desperate energy wave, blasting Unseol back just to survive the execution. It barely phases him. Unseol lands flawlessly blade primed, and that is the exact second Seok realizes he is absolutely cooked. Survival instinct kicks in. He needs backup from the guards stationed outside right now. He reaches for his whistle, but he is not fast enough. Steel pierces flesh, as Unseol drives his blade straight through Seok's chest, shutting his system down for good. Choking on his final breath, the dude's ego shatters. How does a top-tier warrior lose a straight-up one-on-one to an assassin? Standing over the bleeding corpse, Unseol takes mental notes. Lesson learned, true martial artists never sleep on their opponents, no matter who they are. Cut to the library. The old boss is just vibing when Ma Woon bursts through the doors in a complete frenzy, screaming that Sok just got packed up. The librarian is utterly speechless. Reading through the intel, the craziest part drops. This was no Shadow Step stealth kill. It was a brutal face-to-face slugfest. And the murder weapon Sok's blade got absolutely obliterated mid-swing. This detail leaves the old man shook. He knows for a fact Sok spent a solid decade mastering that exact sword. Both of them are mind-blown trying to calculate who holds that kind of firepower. Speak of the devil, Unseol casually walks into the library. Before our guy can even drop a greeting, they literally snatch him by the arm and yank him into the VIP back room for a heavy interrogation. Behind closed doors, the old manager demands the truth. Did he actually take down Seok-yoon Seol? Does not even blink. Just a cold, silent nod. Desperate for the tea, the old guy asks for the play-by-play. Eun Seol shuts that down immediately, dropping a hard reality check. Their only job is handing out contracts. Playing detective is way out of their pay grade. The manager swallows his pride and admits the kid is right. He backs off, promising to keep his nose out of the combat logs. Time to talk business. The bounty on Sok's head was a juicy 3,000 nyang, so he cuts Yoon Seol a massive check right on the spot. He also drops a quick heads up, expect the next hit assignment in exactly 3 days. Yoon Seol pockets the payout but slides a single currency bill back across the desk. The boomer is visibly confused by the tip, until the assassin smirks and tells him to go buy himself a nice drink. The second Yoon Seol walks out, Ma Woon completely loses his mind, crying about the disrespect. He is raging that the rookie is treating a high-ranking official like a legit minimum wage cashier just because of their undercover disguise. But the old boss is not even mad. He bursts into a massive belly laugh, then orders Ma Woon to start feeding this kid the most hellish suicide missions on the board. Why? Because an elite killer skyrockets their branch's stats. With Eun Seol carrying the squad, they are finally about to escape the corporate trenches. Fast forward 6 months. Eun Seol is literally the MVP of the organization. Every time he walks in, the old manager lights up, like he just won the lottery. Even the resident hater Ma Woon is kissing up to him now, hyping him up as the golden ticket to their branch's booming success. But Yoon Seol is not stupid. The fake smiles and extra glazing are a dead giveaway. These two boomers want a massive favor. The old man finally drops the act. He reveals that the absolute top dogs of the syndicate have been watching his highlight reel, and they handpicked him for an exclusive direct order quest. Eun Seol is actually low-key hyped to hear the details. But the second the word bodyguard leaves their lips, he spins on his heels and walks out. Babysitting is an absolute skip. Ma Woon physically grabs his jacket to stop him, screaming that this is an S-tier difficulty raid. Paying an absolutely insane 10,000 nyang every single day, Eun Seol just stares at him. Cash does not move the needle for him anymore. Ma Woon knows the kid is loaded but literally begs him to rethink. The manager tags in, playing the guilt trip card about defying the big bosses. A rejected order means their whole division gets wiped off the map. Underneath the tough talk, the old guy is internally sobbing, praying. He says yes. To sweeten the pot, the boss throws down the ultimate bargaining chip, unlimited backing. Take the gig and he gets VIP access to their entire underground information network. That actually grabs Yoon Seol's attention. He pauses, looking back to ask exactly what the expiration date on that data package is. Forever, the manager replies. A lifetime intel pass is too good to ignore. Yoon Seol locks in the contract but throws up a warning finger. This is a one-time thing. The door shuts, and Ma Woon immediately starts tweaking. He screams at his boss, demanding to know what mental illness possessed him to promise endless data leaks. They are an assassin guild, not this kid's personal search engine. The old man sharply snaps at him to shut his trap. He drops a massive lore bomb. If this bodyguard job goes smoothly, it is their golden ticket straight back to the legendary Demon Palace. Ma Woon's jaw basically hits the floor. He stammers out, asking if that pipe dream is actually a legit possibility. The veteran boss keeps the cards close to his chest. He refuses to leak the full story right now, but leaves off on a chilling cliffhanger. The VIP they are protecting becomes a massive player down the line. Eun Seol pulls up to this wildly expensive dining spot. Linking up with his VIP, he drops his codename 18, letting them know he is clocking in for bodyguard duty. The client is this elegant girl, but the older guy chilling next to her is absolutely glaring daggers at him. He immediately starts barking about how they never asked for a babysitter. The girl totally tunes out his raging and hits Yoon Seol with a polite greeting, dropping her name Suok. She points to the angry guy, introducing him as her uncle Woo Min Wang. Eun Seol scans the duo and instantly clocks their insane wealth. I mean, they are dining at a 5-star joint, plus Woo is giving off heavy martial artist vibes. Woo starts completely flaming our boy, swearing Yoon Seol is just going to be warming the bench while he handles Suok's safety. He gets totally unhinged, roaring at him to stay out of their sightline during the trip. The old head is leaking crazy pressure, but before it pops off, Suok shuts it down, roasting her uncle for disrespecting the guy literally hired to keep them breathing. She smoothly checks in on Yoon Seol, and he brushes it off, admitting Woo looks cracked enough to solo the mission. But Suok drops a massive reality check, saying her uncle actually retired from the bloody underworld of the Jianghu ages ago, which is exactly why the Demon Palace sent backup. Woo, being totally delusional, insists they are stressing over absolutely nothing. The puzzle pieces finally click for Eun Seol. Since Woo has been out of the game for years, his survival radar has definitely rusted over, especially since they are stepping on totally unfamiliar turf. Eun Seol clocks that he is literally the insurance policy against disaster. Changing the subject, Suo-K wonders why he goes by 18, and he explains it is just standard issue protocol for hiding their identities in the Salvation Squad. Flashing a gorgeous smile, she playfully dubs him Mr. 18 from now on. Then she casually drops a bomb asking if he is rocking a disguise mask, just to keep that stealth vibe going. Unso is absolutely shook, mostly because literally 0 people have ever seen through his cover before. She flexes that her vision is just built different, allowing her to spot the weird, unnatural twitching in his facial muscles. Hearing this, an alarm bell rings in Yunseo's head. This girl is far from average, heavily implying her VIP status is way higher than his initial read. She is happily chattering away about their upcoming boat cruise. After finishing their meal, but Yunso brutally cuts the fluff, warning them that the vibe is completely poisoned. He points out a terrifying detail: the other diners have been looping the exact same dialogue like broken NPCs, which guarantees one deadly truth. Unso locks in, realizing the entire room is packed with undercover killers, all waiting to permanently delete Suo-K. Luckily, our boy is grateful they snagged a corner booth, effectively blocking any chance of a backstab. He starts running tactical scenarios in his head, but Wu aggressively interrupts, ordering the kid to stand down and watch, claiming he doesn't need any backup. Flexing his massive ego, Wu smirks and promises to put on a masterclass in bodyguarding. Unso reaches out to hold him back, but the old man blitzes forward, drawing the aggro of every single fake diner in the joint. The hitmen panic for a second, stunned that their stealth cover is totally blown. Shrugging it off, they draw their weapons and swarm him as a massive pack. The first grunt to enter his strike zone instantly learns why you do not mess with a retired legend. Wu casually palms his chest, blasting so much pure kinetic energy into the guy that his internal organs turn to absolute mush. The assassin drops dead instantly, while the resulting shockwave flattens the rest of his crew. Unseo watches in pure awe, mind blown by the sheer destructive output of a single palm strike. He internally takes the loss, admitting the old head is way more lethal than he gave him credit for. The boss of the kill squad loses his mind, barking at his goons to just mob the guy since it is only a 3 versus all situation. The grunts obey and dive in for the kill, but it is a totally useless strategy. Wu just obliterates the floorboards with a palm slam, erupting an insane shockwave that completely wrecks their footing. Capitalizing on their stagger, Wu goes feral, picking them apart with brutal precision. Out of nowhere, a stray throwing knife snipes straight for Suo-K, but Yunso is already on it. He parries the lethal strike effortlessly, barking an order for her to stick within a 3-step radius of him. She nods, locking in, and suddenly a fresh wave of hitmen leaps at their blind spots. But our boy stands like an absolute brick wall. A few seconds later, Wu finishes sweeping up his trash, strutting back over to check on his niece with a massive ego boost. Suo-K confirms she is perfectly safe, but directly praises Unso for the save. Wu snaps back instantly, trashing the kid and claiming he didn't do anything to earn any hype. Dropping his polite act, Unso stares daggers at the old man, asking if his job is to guard the girl, or just stroke his own massive ego. That line absolutely triggers Wu, who glares back, calling our main character a cocky little brat, someone who completely lacks the clearance to even breathe in his direction. But as the dust settles, Wu scans the battlefield and catches on. Unseo totally wiped the floor with the shadow stalkers creeping up on Seo. Swallowing his massive ego, Wu finally admits the rookie holds some actual value. He tosses out the stiffest compliment imaginable. Wu then pitches, heading straight back to their base, but Unseo pumps the brakes hard, warning that the hit squad probably locked down that exact perimeter. He spells it out clearly, explaining that walking right back into that spot guarantees another bloody ambush. He insists that laying low is their only smart play until they unmask the puppet master, pulling the strings. But Wu completely brushes off the warning. He hypes himself up, calling these elite killers nothing but annoying gnats that cannot even touch him. Unso concedes that sure, Wu is an absolute tank, but he drops a major reality check. Their entire mission revolves around keeping Seo breathing. Wu doubles down on his arrogance. He claims his brief slip-up was a one-time glitch and swears nobody is getting past his defenses twice. Pushing for basic survival tactics, Unseo begs him to at least rock a disguise, but Wu straight up rejects it, flexing that fear just is not in his vocabulary. Catching on to this stubborn main character syndrome, Unseo realizes arguing is pointless. He throws in the towel and decides to let the reckless meathead lead the charge. Still, he refuses to leave things to chance. He pulls Seo aside, ordering him to stick tightly to his shadow the absolute second they cross that threshold. His survival instincts are screaming that the entire building is rigged as a death trap, specifically targeting their priority package. Secretly though, Unseo is entirely down for the smoke. He is actually itching for a real fight. A few beats later, they roll up to the location. Kicking the front gates wide open, Wu struts inside like he owns the place. But halfway down the hall, his combat radar finally pings. He realizes hostile forces are lurking in the shadows. Flashing a wickedly unhinged grin, Wu blitzes forward. absolutely obliterating the hidden ambushers in a single flash. Standing over the wreckage, he smirks at Yunseo. Dripping with toxic confidence, he brags about easily handling the threat, insisting that he promised a totally flawless sweep. But Yunseo keeps a dead serious face. He coldly cuts off the victory lap, dropping the chilling truth that this nightmare is just getting started. Boom. Before Wu can even process it, an absolute swarm of mass killers drops from the rafters. Faster than a heartbeat, our trio is completely boxed in. Staring down this massive army sent just for one guy, it finally clicks for Unseo. He realizes So holds an insane level of power and importance.